Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 186, Blackest Night Part 2. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. It's funny how a half an episode turns into a 3-hour discussion on Blackest Night. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
Oh, we had planned this originally. We were going to do like half of the episode on this, then we're going to go on to some. We had a whole bunch of other books we want to talk about, and we will get to those. So those things are we're delaying those, but we are going to get to them. What we did on this episode is we talked about the most recent issue of Green Lantern Corps. Even though we talked a little bit about it on last episode, we really delved in depth into that issue. Talked about a lot of the themes that are going on in Blackest Night with them. We also went heavily into the tie-ins. We talked about the most recent issue, Adventure Comics number 4. We talked about Rebels number 10, Booster Gold number 26, and Doom Patrol number 4. In a highly in-depth segment talking about Blackest Night. It was fun because some of those books are books that Myron Rumsey, who's joining us again from the blog of OA, hadn't been reading. So it was interesting to get his perspective on those books as a fan.
Yeah.
Because you and I have both been reading both of those books.
And also different opinions of some of the different books that you have a little bit closer connection to than I do even.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good discussion. So hopefully you guys will find a lot of pleasure on this one for Blackest Night. Next week we're going to be back with Preacher Part 2. And then after that we're going to do an episode revolving around some of the issues. We wanted to do that Vigilante Challenge segment, and we're still going to do that. The funny part is, when we initially announced the Vigilante Challenge, little did we know that Vigilante was going to be canceled with issue 12. So we did that, the Vigilante number 11 challenge. So what we'll do is, right after the Preacher episode, one of the segments we will feature on that next show will definitely be Vigilante number 11, the in-depth segment that we told all of you we're going to do. We're still going to do that. But then we'll also do a short segment on number 12 that goes along with it. We'll do kind of a Speeding Bullet style in issue 12, just how that series wraps up. I really want to talk about that series, though, because it's a series I'm very sad that it's canceled. It's a series that I thoroughly enjoyed. I can't recommend enough seeking out all the issues of it to enjoy this ride, because I know with issue 12 everything will come to... I haven't read issue 12 yet as of when we're chatting now, but I know with issue 12, I know Wolfman will pull all that together and reveal some of the mysteries. I'm just sad, though, because the series had a lot of potential to go in a whole bunch of different directions with...
Yeah, and he was laying down groundwork to do long-term storytelling and just reveals bit here, reveal bit here, and I'm just like, I'm sad to see it end. I really enjoyed reading this, and issue 11 really got me going, wow, this is really cool. Oh man, I was really looking forward to talking about
anything about this book being canceled. I knew that Marv Wolfman had mentioned at Mid-Ohio-Con that he wished that the series had better sales numbers. So that got me thinking I'd love to do a Vigilante Challenge. So that's when I announced that we would do it for number 11. And I wonder if he knew there that it had been canceled. I mean, he had to have probably known that it was canceled, because at that point in time, 12 would have been solicited, and I was really sad to see that this series is coming to an end, because it's a favorite of mine. I've been enjoying this one, so we'll definitely be talking about that. Hi everyone, I got a couple pieces of news that I wanted to pass on to you before we kicked into the show. Eric Martin, co-host of the DC Noise podcast, passed away on November 18th. For anybody that listens to DC Noise, I know obviously a lot of our listening audience would be listening to us and DC Noise if you're a DC fan. Eric, I had the opportunity to get to know Eric as the question in the forums for a number of years before he even became a podcaster. Eric was part of the Comics Playground podcast, which was an all-ages podcast, which I ate up as a school teacher. Eric's one of those guys that I got an opportunity to meet him a couple of times at the Mid-Ohio-Con, and he was one of those guys, when you got to meet Eric, you knew that Eric was a what you see is what you get kind of guy. He just comes off as a very pleasant fellow, very nice guy. There's nothing fake about him. And I didn't have the opportunity to get to know him as well as obviously his co-host Mike, or a lot of his really close friends and family, or a lot of the listeners of DC Noise Podcast who might have interacted with him a lot more than I did. But I want to thank Duet from the forums for posting the news. And I just want to send out my condolences to his friends and family, because it was shocking. I had no idea, and sorry for the loss, because that's just an incredibly nice guy. I also wanted to pass on, my mother has been diagnosed with stage 3, possibly stage 4 breast cancer again. For longtime listeners, you would know that she survived a bout with this previously. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is just an explanation of this episode, for example, was a couple days late, other than what I was expecting it to be. And if we're a couple days late here or there, a lot of that's the reason why. The podcast is very therapeutic for me. As you know, obviously, I love comics. It's my escape. And my mom, obviously, is deeply rooted in the reason why I'm a podcaster, because she, as when I was a kid, has been the one that just encouraged me to read comics. She buys me every Christmas. She buys me every Batman item that you could possibly imagine, from cards to wrapping paper to... There's always something Batman themed. She'll put something in a Batman bag she saw somewhere, just because she knows as a kid that it was always my go-to guy, and she keeps me young. And this has been something for me that has been very difficult. And like I said, I just wanted to pass this on just as more of an explanation if we're a day late here or there. Please check the website and the show forums for information. I usually post in Twitter and Facebook and all those places as well. But the places I always post first are the website and definitely the forums. If you're not a forum member, just click on the links. It'll just give you updates on when the episodes are coming out and things like that. I will try to keep a pretty consistent schedule just because I need it. Because I love doing this show for you guys and things like that. And I just really wanted to thank everyone for friendship and support. People in the forum have already, because I posted there, have already been so wonderful as far as just some nice words and comments. And I want to thank you for that. As always, we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Want to remind everyone to check us out on Get Your Geek On Radio. That's getyourgeekonradio.com. Get Your Geek On Radio, making geek chic. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up Doom Patrol number 6, written by Keith Giffen, co-feature written by Keith Giffen and J.M.D. Mateus, art by Matthew Clark, co-feature art by Kevin McGuire, and a cover by Matthew Clark. This month, we spotlight Negative Man, who's going to knit the history of the Doom Patrol into one cohesive whole. Cohesive to him, anyway. Plus, the Metal Men find another gag that those 3 old geezers doing the feature can run into the ground. Regularly $3.99, 40% off, only $2.39. Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to remind everyone about the Showcase Presents Booster Gold. This contains issues 1 to 25, Action Comics $5.94. It's over 600 pages of comics for less than $17. It's actually the retail price is suggested at $16.99. With the 37% off discount over at InStockTrades.com, you can pick it up for $10.70. So I want to thank InStockTrades.com for providing those amazing discounts. It's a lot of comics for $10.70. So if you haven't read any of that previous Booster Gold series, it's a great chance to read it at a great discount. Thank you, DCBService.com, for your pre-order support, and InStockTrades.com for supporting us with those wonderful trades and hardcover discounts. Jim, you're known for your singing song stylings, but not only are you known for that, but you're also known for telling people, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I asked for that.
You asked for it.
Let's talk Blackest Night.
Hello, Sean and Jim.
I want to make one little correction to this discussion. When we were chatting, there was one little part where we had an audio hiccup and something was lost. We were talking about our comic collections and how personal they are, and how the value comes from whatever you personally view your comic collection to be. And Myron made mention about his comic collection and his son and the future and things like that. And one of the questions I asked him was, does your son collect comics? And Myron had said, no, he doesn't. And then that led into a discussion, well, those comics are probably going to wind up in a flea market afterwards, which is true, because if something happened to me, my wife doesn't have the same view of my comic collection that I do. That's why I'm going to definitely will them to Jim if anything happens to me. But I wanted to add that in as far as the discussion point, because it seems like we jumped from one thing right into that discussion about that, and we lost like 2 seconds there, and I wanted to have that explanation before we kicked into this discussion. Joining us again is Myron Rumsey from the blog of OA, and Myron, welcome back for part 2 of our unplanned 2-part discussion.
It's great to be back.
And Myron, it was funny. I wasn't going to do this on this episode, but I got home today, and I was waiting for Jim, and I'm like, all right, I want to read Adventure Comics number 4. We get our books on Thursdays. So I pulled it out, and I started reading it. I'm like, okay, we got to start with this. Because it's awesome.
Oh, my God.
And the implications of this are great because it takes place technically on our world. So the Black Lanterns are here.
Yeah, the scene where he gets his comics, I was just looking to make sure it wasn't my shop.
Yeah. You know what? Here's the question, though. If it was, could you resist?
I don't know.
I would want to see that.
Well, we saw what happened to the people in the comic shop.
Yeah, but
hey,
where
great Black Lantern costume. They're gone.
But talk about legendary status. What happened to your co-host? He got blown away in the comic shop by a Black Lantern. I mean, dude, the episodes...
Mariah would miss you, dude.
Huh?
Mariah would miss you.
I said I would be saying that.
We're both throwing each other under the bus on that one.
But your geek cred would go way up.
Oh, big
time. It really would.
You get killed by an actual Black Lantern?
That would be so awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think, but...
Sean Whalen of Earth Prime, rise!
Oh, that would be a good podcast. But one of the things I really liked about this one is, as he was reading the comics, he's doing research now to see what happens to his story. And he's not quite sure how to handle it, because it's in his home, it says, why couldn't they leave me out of this? People already hate me enough as it is. I'm more than a joke. I was more. I will be more. I'm not a bad guy. To look through all these issues and know that people are feeling like he is this threat, because he still doesn't see himself as the bad guy.
Yeah, he just thinks he's misperceived.
Yeah, and it's funny because you think about it. If this is actually taking place on our Earth, that means, right now, as Jeff Johns is writing this, there's somewhere on that same world is Superboy Prime. Now, I'd be a little bit nervous if I was Jeff right now writing this stuff about Superboy Prime, if he actually existed on this world, because he's not the most stable person in the world.
I was going to say we have to be careful because Superboy Prime might be listening to Raging Bullets right now.
Hey, I've always liked Superboy Prime. I think he's misunderstood, and, I think they should back off and cut him some slack.
The issue that he's reading, which is pretty funny here, is Adventure Comics number 4, and when he's looking at it, he comes to the ending, and it's funny to read the issue through once and see what that ending is, but then to go back and look through it again and realize he saw the real ending of the issue, and he has no clue what happens to him. We're left in a major cliffhanger, and so is he. I do like the introduction of new Black Lanterns now. Like, we see this in Booster Gold, we see it here, where before we actually see them pop out as a Black Lantern, we see the download phase.
Yeah.
Where it's Alexander Luthor's life being replayed, his relationship with Prime, and how he really did look at them as partners and friends. And these are all things that are, and the reason why he's being so drawn to Prime is because he knows, the Black Lantern knows from this download, this guy would gain an emotional response for him by going to him. So it makes sense why he would try to go through the multiverse to make that happen.
Yeah, and you think about just how much rage is and was Superboy Prime. That's got to be just a tasty morsel to any Black Lantern. So that's, I like it's part of who the character is and why they're doing it. It's again showing, just the planning and the strategy on their part. It's not just mental games, but they're coming up with a good idea. Go to somewhere where you can actually pull out some serious mojo.
I liked the little page with the Legion, where you see that they've recognized that if Prime can use information from his world, they could too.
Yeah.
Like, these would become documents like, hey, we can find out what happens to us, and who could we save? I would do that too.
Well, it's tough because, you can't, there's some past you can't change. We're seeing that in Booster Gold, where he tried to save Barbara Gordon. She kept dying over and over and over again. There's some stuff you can't change. There's some stuff that's locked in time. Even if how it's supposed to end, something's going to happen. Something's going to change that.
Doctor Who has explored this multiple times in the new series. The fact that, the Doctor will try to change an event, and it ends up being, because it is a set static event in time, he ends up causing the event, even though he changed it.
That Pompeii episode.
Yeah.
That was a great episode.
Pompeii?
Yeah, where he went back to Pompeii and he couldn't save people. He couldn't stop the event. It had to actually happen. But he was able to save that one family.
Right. But it was the frustration of not being able to change that. And I like that, because you would think if you were able to time travel and you interact with people to the point where you get to know them, you would want to be able to make those changes and affect that change, especially in the case that it adds more weight than with a Booster Gold, who has worked with Oracle, who has worked with Ted Cord, who's best friends with Ted Cord. You see him put in situations where he tries to do that, and it really does work. This story, though, you see that with the Legion. Yes, they have this opportunity because of time travel and travel through the multiverse to now see if they can find out. Of course, it's a little too late because these events have already taken place. But I'm going to be curious to see if we get to see them go to Prime's world to try and get some of these documents, because it looks like Brainiac is heavily interested in doing that. So I don't know. I'd like to see that play out.
Prime's comic book collection right there. That thing was huge and massive. And you think about it, if you go back in time, you can get that full collection. You know everything that's going to happen. Because I'm pretty sure with some of the problems of the Legion, there was a great event that kind of messed up the communication, messed up the history line. So there's some areas that have where they don't know what actually happened. Right there is a recording of what actually happened.
Here becomes an interesting problem, though. With current continuity, Prime's world is running concurrently with the events that are happening in comics, as Prime is quickly finding out. So he isn't getting foreknowledge here, in the sense that the issue that just came out is what is currently happening to him. It's playing out now. He has no idea how this event is going to end because it's happening to him here and now. So that becomes, he knows a little bit of foreknowledge, but he doesn't know what's happening next year for him, which is why he goes to the internet. And I loved that bit, where, using the internet as a resource, trying to find out what was going on. The relationship with his family.
Yeah, that was, it kind of makes sense. They witnessed him frying his girlfriend, and, he's got this supernatural, unlimited power, and there's no other superhero, meta, anything that could stop him. So they're a little bit nervous about this, and I think it's justifiable.
Did you notice that Prime was looking at the DC Comics blog?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that they've added that little twist into it. One of the things that I loved is when he says, "I love you, Mom." What would it take to make a mother? This is a mother who did previously love him, and I think to a certain extent, deep down still does. But what would make a mother so terrified of her son that she would say this after that? Because if you take a look at him, it's a very comforting scene. He's putting his hand calmly on her. "I love you, Mom." And yet she's like, "Drive. What? Where? Anywhere. But he'll find us."
He'll find us again.
Right.
Just like last time.
Wow. But at the comic shop, when we see him, like you said, looking at the DC Comics blog, and the guy's cool Black Lantern costume, and there shows Alexander Luthor. And he wipes that guy out.
Yeah.
But the power of the Black Lanterns, Prime has been basically, for all essential purposes, depowered. He doesn't have access to Superman-like powers anymore, not on the level that he did before, and Luthor gives him a kick charge. So it is interesting to see that these Black Lanterns have the same powers as their counterparts. He was able to easily transverse the multiverse, which is not something anybody other than the Flashes realistically can do without some form of aid. And yet we've got Luthor easily doing this and showing up and making Prime a major threat again.
I liked how he could feel, Luthor could feel the anger and the hatred, the rage coming off of the internet itself.
Yeah.
It's Prime time, baby. I would say worst line. I got to say it to him, as hokey and cheesy as that line is. I would say it.
Yeah.
and probably not pull it off as well as he did. Now, here's a question I've got. He's a hero. He is being a hero here. He saved his parents.
Yeah.
He dove in front of them, not knowing what could happen to him. My parents love me. They do. And he really does dive in front of the attempt to destroy them. So this goes back to like Clark in Legions of Three Worlds was saying that he was hoping he could save Prime, was hoping he could reach him and save him. And here you see, I don't know, I guess there is a little bit of a possibility of redemption for this guy. He's nuts.
I think he's just misunderstood.
No, he's nuts.
No, I'm going by the theory that he may be out there, so he's just misunderstood. No, to be honest, what it is he's immature. And he's not, he wasn't ready for the powers that he got. He wasn't ready for what he had to deal with. And it's this massive pressure above, above what he could personally handle. You think about, he sacrificed everything to save the universe, and he got nothing for it. Not only did he get nothing for it, he got treated like a villain eventually. And it just, compounding on time and time again. And he's sitting there going, you know what? Forget all of you. That, a lot of people say how, Prime's just, does the spoiled brat rant and type of stuff. Yeah, he did. Because there's this kid who didn't know how to deal with his emotions. He didn't know how to deal with the conflicting, thoughts and feelings and, what was going through his head. He didn't have a positive outlook, a positive, release in this. And that was the thing about with, Clark saying hopefully he could save Prime. I think actually if Prime were to spend time with Clark.
I think he wanted to redeem him was the exact thing,
But it's, Clark could have done it. I remember when the line first came out, I was thinking there's no way not even Clark could do it. But, reading this episode, thinking, just seeing him want to be a hero.
Issue
episode. Come on, cut me some slack. But just reading this issue, there is a redeemable quality in him, and so I'm hoping the spoiler alert that they list in the comic that he dies next issue is wrong. I'm hoping that he makes it because I actually I'd like to see.
You don't want to see him a Black Lantern?
I don't want to see Superboy Prime a Black Lantern. I want to see something.
Sucking up, Jim.
What?
Now you're just sucking up.
No. No, seriously. I think I'd like to see him, see the character again and, possibly using him and kind of like even dancing between the two worlds where he reads something and he transverses the multiverse, or he reads something and, and does something, or some stuff with the Legion coming back to him. I don't know. I think the character has real interesting potential, and we're especially considering he's in this universe. He's in this Earth. I'm kind of curious to see what they could do with him.
I gotta say this about the character. Like, I loved him in this issue. I want to see where he goes in Blackest Night. I don't know, like, he's a character, like, let's play him in Blackest Night and do some stuff with him, but I don't want to see him regularly appearing. I like when they use him sparingly for events and stories. Like, I loved him in Legion of Three Worlds. I love him here. And I think he works on that level. I think he's somebody who could get potentially annoying very fast if you didn't pick your spots. So I'm not saying anything, and this isn't a criticism on how they've used him. I've liked how they've used him. But I think the reason why he works so well is when you, like now I'm like, okay, I'm ready for him. I really was anxious to see what he's been up to and how he actually plays into this. And I was very satisfied with it. But I don't know, I mean, I guess the right writer with the right things to do with him. Like, Jeff Johns really gets this character, so he's a fun character to read with Jeff Johns. And Sterling Gates, I was involved in this issue as well. It's, I don't know, he's an interesting character. Do you guys genuinely like this character? What are your thoughts on Prime?
I don't necessarily like him. I think he gets whiny really quick. But when used sparingly, he adds a lot of great flavor to any story you insert him into. But like you said, you've got to use him a little bit more sparingly in terms of not overkilling. I think if he got used too much, he'd wear out his welcome really quick.
I think the later appearances of him have been less whiny, more cool.
Yeah.
I like, in this one, the artwork by Jerry Ordway. It was a good choice. Because Prime's a character that comes from classic DC mythos. He's been around since the original Crisis. So to have that style of artwork, which it just really works for this character in particular, and to see those flashbacks of the death of Jason Todd, the death of Superman, Batman's back being broken, Hal turning into Parallax, Diana versus Artemis back during that time, when Wally West became the Flash of the, it was a Wally West from the future in an alternate timeline who came back, Walter West. To see those things play out on the screen and that kind of art styling, it really worked here, and it's really sharp art, and I really enjoyed it. This is a good looking issue. I was looking very forward to this. Guys, I want to talk a little bit, if we could, about Green Lantern number 47. The writer on that issue was Jeff Johns, pencils by Doug Mahnke, inker Christian Almay, Mahnke and Wen, with Mark Irwin also as well. Colors by Randy Major, letterer Rob Lay, associate editor Adam Schlagman, editor Eddie Berganza. Atrocitus takes center stage in an issue that gives us more clues into not only how the Red Lanterns work, but how they ultimately deal when faced with Black Lanterns. The idea that the most powerful hate comes from personal pain is really powerful. Some sort of personal wrong or even perceived personal wrong that severely altered your desired path. This would affect someone good, evil, or even neutral. And I really liked that concept because it makes you understand. The key phrase at the opening, the rings replaced our damaged hearts. I feel like a dunce admitting this. The first time through, I didn't catch this as a clue. And it's so cool to reread it now and realize, oh my gosh, it was there right from the get-go, right on the page. I just didn't see it coming. I was shocked when we actually got the revelation. So it was cool.
Yeah, you weren't alone on that one. It's one of those things I missed it, and it's one of the cool things about the personalizing of the different colors of the lanterns. Whenever we talk about the color war, we always say, do we still want it to continue after everything is done? And stuff like this is what makes me want it to continue, because Red Lanterns before I thought were very one-sided, very limited on what they could do, what they could and would do with them. We're seeing just the characters, the individual lanterns developing, more communication, a little bit more usage, less just blind rage, actually a focused attack and focused patterns. I thought this was a really cool issue that it developed the character and made the Red Lanterns a little bit more interesting. And add to I've always wanted the color war to continue, just the color spectrum. This really accented that, really enhanced the desire.
It almost added a sense of nobility to the Red Lanterns that wasn't there before. It added a lot of dimension.
Yeah, you're right. They're more than just these beasts, these raging beasts.
Spewing blood and and guck and just being nasty things.
Sloppy.
Yeah.
Now it's the idea that the Red Lanterns are in many levels on life support via their rings. Here's a question I have for you guys: if you still have a heart as a Red Lantern, is it possible for it to start beating again if you are separated from a red ring? I mean, we saw with Hal that he was able to take on a red ring and be separated from it. But he had another ring influencing things. So he wasn't, I guess I took it that he wasn't fully taken by the red ring because of that. What would happen to a standard Red Lantern? Like if Atrocitus if the ring was taken from him, if he lost the ring somehow, would he be dead? I mean, barring the events from this issue, still having a beating heart in there. Or still having a heart to beat again, I guess. Because I'm taking their hearts don't beat anymore, right? It's the ring that does that?
Yeah, that's how I'm reading it as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether they replace what you have or whether does it serve as the heart. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. So, because obviously there was clearly something physically there. So I don't know. It's interesting to see. Atrocitus comes face to face with versions of his own family. It's interesting how rage manifests differently in the face of the Black Lanterns. He doesn't back down. He lashes out. He has forged ahead in his eyes, but their prophecy was like incomplete, and now he's moving beyond it. I love this whole concept of he has become something more. He's a thinker, which in previous offerings, I haven't seen the Red Lanterns doing that, and that is neat here. Now, again, I'm a dunce. The single page of his heart being ripped out, I was thinking, oh no, I really liked Atrocitus. I didn't think he was going to be alive there. I'm like, really? And that's where it gets super cool, because we see the heart beat, roll across the screen, Rage bringing him to life. There is something so cool about this concept of bringing the Lanterns together. Good and evil and everything in between, having to set aside natural differences for the purpose of standing against this dark force. It goes beyond emotion. There's philosophy involved. There's codes involved here. Will this union remain post Blackest Night? I don't know, and it's one of the things that I really enjoy seeing where this could possibly go. This story is so much deeper than where this miniseries is going to end. It's where does the core concept, the various core concepts, go prior to that, and I love that. I love this feeling of, wow, I really want to enjoy this ride and see where these characters are going to go after this is done, not just during this storyline. That's great serialized storytelling, because this is going to have a conclusion to it, but there's so much more being developed here that just is going to take storytelling way beyond Blackest Night.
You know, I kind of wondered from Jeff's writing style how he looked at this. Did he design how the Red Lantern power creates the blood and can regenerate the organs? Did he create that knowing this scene was going to happen, or did this scene evolve because of the way that he designed the Red Lantern Corps?
I don't know, because I mean, I'm sure he had a framework in mind, you know, when he started developing this 3-part story that kind of spun out of this. But I got to agree with you. I don't know, you know, if this just kind of came organically. It was something that as they were developing the story, wow, you know, this naturally leads to this. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be.
I would love to sit in on that.
That is a con question to ask him. You know, that's that's a question I'd love to know. Just, you know, especially about the Red Lanterns, just even the other Lanterns. How much did he have laid out, you know, on these characters, who they would be? Did he have a basic concept of them? Did he know where he was going to go with them? How, you know, what was the birth process of this?
I would assume he developed the cores first, the individual colors, and then started taking a look, or maybe he developed the whole framework that there was going to be a Blackest Night, and gradually went back and developed the core and started thinking about some cool ways they could interact with each other and react.
I thought he figured he was planning Blackest Night when he first started doing Rebirth. He was thinking the whole color war. He was thinking
that's what I'm saying.
Back. But I don't think he had like Altruis or, you know, Saint Walker, or the characters made yet. That's what I'd really like to know. When did he do that?
Who?
Saint Walker.
You don't know the other guy. You said Altruis?
You know what? I've had a really bad day at work.
Who is Altruis?
You know, I had a bad day at work. Cut me some slack today.
I butchered some names there, but you left all kinds of consonants and vowels out of there.
The big red angry dude, okay? How about that?
You left out the OC, the I, and the T. Sorry.
You're number one, pal. You're number one.
That's nice of you.
Yeah.
The sound is the sound of Jim being thrown under the bus.
What else?
Sean backs up the bus, hits me a couple more times, and then moves on.
Sinestro and his ex, Hal versus Abin Sur, with Carol caught somewhere in the middle. Monkey and the whole team should really be commended here. It looks appropriately dark thanks to the colors from Randy Major, yet we never lose this sense of heroism, which is interesting here. There's a confidence to Hal when you look at him. A Black Lantern is gripping him by the throat, yet we never see him lose that. You would think that situation would unnerve him visibly, but this shows how much he's truly gone through since his rebirth. I am so glad to see that Parallax and Coast City no longer has an effect on him. That worked really well early on and throughout the development, but at this stage, he's paid for that. He's redeemed himself, and I'm glad to see he's moved on. That sense of progression is a really important touch to me. I would probably have groaned if it worked, because you'd be kind of like, really, we're going there again? And I love that we went there, but it felt very different. And it showed something new about the character, and that was something that I really grabbed. I love that with every psychological direction Abin Sur took, that Will remained, which was a sharp contrast to what Sinestro was going through. And it shows us that while Hal has faced his demons, Sinestro hasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, big time. And the thing I also liked was, with all the previous times we see the color spectrum, you do see the colors mixed through, but with Hal, it is a constant, solid will. You know, it's not the will and fear, will and compassion. There is that solid, just green glow. And there, it's like he is, the best of the best. So that's something that's coming through, and it's coming through clear as a bell. And I liked that about Hal.
He kind of sets aside any of that personal stuff, and it's all about, we have to get this job done, and this is what's important, and my own personal stuff. That takes a second backseat to everything else.
Carol doth protest too much, at least in my eyes. There's a definite link between the two. It'll be interesting to see where this relationship goes post-Blackest Night. I see a love triangle for Hal when he comes back. An old love might be rekindling there. I don't know. It feels like there's more there, and I like that, the way that that's slowly developing.
Now, one of the things, it's another cool just Sinestro moment. He's a villain that I really like. And when they were dispatching Abin Sur and his ex, I like the fact that Hal kind of, did a little quirk about, let's end this reunion short. And Sinestro's like, hey, have some respect. There's no need for banter.
Well, have some respect for the dead.
Have some respect for the dead.
But even before that, Sinestro has to face the consequences of his quest for order. Would you sacrifice love, fear, love, compassion, the mental games of manipulation? Could Sinestro have taken her down if Hal and the rest hadn't shown? Would Sinestro possibly have fallen? Interesting to ponder. They caught him at a moment of weakness. I don't know there if that would have been left to go on, what would have happened to Sinestro. I don't know there. Because we've seen people falter in one split second because a Black Lantern has taken an opportunity and caught them off guard. Sinestro would be an interesting one. I think it was a 50-50 shot right there for Sinestro if the others hadn't shown.
Sinestro got lucky. He had some backup there.
And I really want to know what happened between those two characters.
I do too. That's a story that I'd like to read, and I'd like to see more of that history.
I was about to ask you guys, is that something that's known out there? Because it makes sense with Abin Sur and him being such good friends that, he would get to know Abin Sur, he would get to know the sister, the whole deal there. I thought that was a kind of like, oh, okay, I wonder if this is an old Green Lantern story that they've told in the past or something.
It's new. It's another case of one of those instances where, Jeff Johns adds a layer that wasn't there before.
That classic view of Hal with his hand on the forearm supporting his ring hand like a gun, it makes him look like a polished veteran. It is a classic, iconic image of Hal, though, that we see. And it's great to see some heroes present themselves in that manner. It's nice to see the polished veteran, that one hero that you can count on. Hal's going to know what to do. He's going to, it's even in the darkest situation, he's going to step up and be confident and have some. I like different layers of heroes. I like your newer heroes. I like your kind of mid-level heroes, and having your wily veterans and the whole thing. It adds a real hierarchy. Any job has that. And, those people that you can count on to be confident and make the right decisions and just be the all-around good guy. And I like that. It just feels very real world.
When the going gets tough, there's certain people you want on the job.
Oh, yeah.
And it's especially like with, there's certain cops out there, and I always think of, whenever I think Green Lantern, I do think police force more than military. And there are some cops out there that, they rub people the wrong way, but they know what they're doing. And if ever someone in your family was killed, that's who you'd want to collar the crime. That's who you'd want working that case, because they know what they're doing. And it's, with Jordan, he's the guy I'd always want on the job, because it's not just, you say the polished veteran, but there is just that determination that, he's not going to back down. He's not going to hold off, and he's going to keep coming and coming and coming until he gets his man. And it's just that pure determination. He's a lot of times been called the cowboy, the highball, the ladies man, but there is that level of commitment and dedication. You really see that with him, and that's something that I like about the Green Lantern, I like about the Corps, and I like about Hal.
Before Sinestro's former lover is taken, Indigo, I know you. I mean, that's something I don't want to gloss over here, because who is the female Indigo? What is the relation? There's no way that's a throwaway comment. Is she somehow related to Abin Sur as well? What is, I'm throwing that out there as just kind of things I was thinking at the time. I don't know anything yet, but it had me thinking, and I loved that bit. Because just little tiny details like that are something, it's not a surface level story. There's a lot of clues and hints and things thrown in there that if you go back and reread, they're worth catching. And that I love that. That gives me value for my comics.
That definitely was not an incidental line.
No, not at all. Now, Sinestro will not allow any chinks to his armor being exposed. It goes back to his need for control. Who was she? Abin's sister. Who was she to you? Nobody. And he can't let anybody know what that situation was, especially not Hal. He will not let Hal see that he has, that it's pride. It's his sense of order. It's his sense of fear. You can't let, if you're going to control fear, you can't let anybody know what your fears are, because then they have that control over you.
You think about when the Red Lanterns were first really targeting Sinestro, what they say, we're going after your daughter. And he immediately went to her and just, presenting, told her the facts and just laid everything out there. Sinestro knows his own strengths and his weaknesses. He'll never admit his weaknesses, but he does know what they are. And I like seeing him, just cover and, kind of like put up his barriers for that.
He also makes a powerful point about the Red Lanterns. What would you guys do? Go for rage and the power against the Lanterns? Or go for a way to control the rage first, like Hal was saying? I found Sinestro's argument compelling, even though I saw Hal's point as well. And I liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, both definitely had very valid strategies. There was no right or wrong, I don't think, there.
Actually, I thought Hal had the right idea. Just one, the control factor, but two, also thinking when you have a Blue Lantern present, the Green Lantern gets jacked up. So now you're not only do you have the way to control the rage and get all that power under control, you now have the Green Lantern jacked up even higher.
And it's interesting that he did not make that as an argument to Sinestro.
Right. Because
that may have backfired.
Oh, big time. Because Sinestro would say, oh, what, you want to be more powerful than me, Jordan? And it would have opened up a, problem increased the problem between the two of them. He needed a compromise. He needed them working together. And, sometimes, when you're laying out an attack plan, you want the big guns, but you also want a strong defensive position. And the Blue Lanterns really give you a good defensive position. It's, offense gets the glory, but defense wins the game. And the Blue Lanterns really are, I would say, a really strong defensive position in that it increases everybody. Who knows? Maybe the Blue Lanterns increase other rings as well. We know right now it does green, but you really don't know the full spectrum of what Hope can do. Maybe Hope can, help love. Maybe Hope can help compassion. We see the Indigo tribe, they're going through a lot of power as they're taking it down. Maybe this influx of Hope will jack up the compassion. So I definitely, there's no doubt in my mind, you go blue first. That's, big time.
Well, and you might be thinking, too, if you go to the red and you've already seen how they just love Sinestro so much, you might create a situation where you can't control it, number one. Or number two, will Sinestro use the red against him?
And Sinestro, I see, and I agree with you. I think that's what Sinestro's thinking, because he doesn't want to seem like an equal to. Doesn't want to seem like he won't let himself seem like an equal to them in the way he's carrying himself and presenting himself. So for him to have the rage there, he feels that would, if you take a look at, he talks about the humans and Hal, he right now is seeing a situation where he is not a power player. compared to the others.
Yeah, and I loved his comment about how he has 100 members of his corps overhead who are willing to give their lives for the defense of Corrigan, and I thought that was just a cool statement, because we're talking about how he wants to show himself off as a power, and how's like, is that a threat? No, it's a fact. And I just thought that was just a cool, Sinestro moment.
Yeah, he's trying to promote his status so that he...
So he's an equal, and actually, he's trying to show himself. See, I'm just as powerful as the Green Lantern Corps.
I like that Hal doesn't back down, but also provides an interesting point. Who cares who carries the biggest stick if the Black Lanterns are going to run over your world with a semi? And I loved that bit. He was basically saying it just doesn't matter. You and I can sit here with baseball bats, whatever. We're going to get hit by this big old truck, and it just doesn't matter at the moment. This story shows us, and he was very calm doing all this. This story shows Hal in a place that perhaps he has never been. Throughout his history, he's been one of the greatest lanterns, or, been the greatest lantern, and a true hero who's always had a weak spot. We've seen Hal here who knows what he stands for and will not follow senseless orders without standing up for what is right. He's being a true leader. I gotta say, this is why I'd love to see him take a run at leading the JLA. He's primed and ready for that role. We're seeing him at a different level of operation here that I think would be really interesting to see him in that leadership position.
It definitely not a reluctant leader.
Oh, Jesus, enough with that already.
If I didn't, you know what? Right now there are people listening who are like, "Okay, Jim, when are you going to say it? Yes. Come on!" You set it up so perfectly, and I gotta agree with you though. What you're saying just about how I really do want to see him, with the changes going on in the JLA, I was a little bit kind of like, I really wanted to see, Black Canary regain control and really develop and, have it be a solid, team leadership under her. And maybe I was actually even thinking maybe she could take the quote unquote misfits that they have and make them into a formidable JLA force, but as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, I kind of like to see Hal run this. It'd be kind of neat to seeing just the whole, especially coming out of that cry for justice, where we're seeing him take a little bit more proactive approach. I'd like to see more of a JLA strike force type of mindset.
I got to say one thing, though. I do want to see eventually a dealing with what happened with Black Canary and where it would have gone with it. Like, I like this idea of maybe perhaps a second Justice League book down the road, and I'm hoping that they deal with, because I liked Black Canary as the leader of the Justice League. I thought it was a great move. I thought that it showed the character in a light that matched where she'd been taken in books like Birds of Prey. So I think she's a character that if it doesn't happen there, I would still like to see it dealt with at some point, what happened with that. Where she was going to go, because it kind of left that like she quit and ended all that and took her ball and ran home, and she never had a chance to redeem herself for that. And I think it's a character that deserves that. So I know we're getting off a little tangent there, but I mean, it was just because it came up about leadership. I would love to see that play out. And that's not taking anything away from our point here. I do want to see Hal lead the Justice League, and I still stand behind that, because I think he'd provide an interesting dynamic to that team. Now, here's a great example of great story crafting. John Stewart. While a ton has been revealed in Hal's story with the gathering of the lanterns, John's story is building here. And I like this. We've got events paying off. We've got more depth going over there. There's a nice teaser here, though. It's interesting to see the green and the black lanterns on the corpse. How will they interact, to see what's going on there? I don't know. That hand that was that corpse that's there? It had a Green Lantern on there.
Now, I'm trying to
I haven't seen that. I don't know.
Okay.
I think there's one Green Lantern that we haven't seen yet be revived.
Mm-hmm.
Strong tie to John Stewart, and that's Kat Matui.
Ah.
Okay.
Which they've hinted at that we were going to see Kat Matui. So that actually, you're 100% correct. I think that's definitely who it is. I want to see, though, because that was a green ring there.
Yeah.
How did he get it, first off?
She.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
She. I don't know who Kat Matui is.
This is John Stewart's former lover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
that's Star Sapphire.
Oh, okay.
So on the blue dim.
Man, I'm just firing on all cylinders today, aren't
I? No. You don't know. I mean, you didn't. No. You didn't know. And for other people who don't know, that's a great question. No, honestly, I'm not throwing you under the bus on that one. Kat Matui was a great question because we threw out that it was a lantern. We never said it was a female lantern. How would you know? We just said it was a tie to John Stewart. So how would you know? And all we see is a hand. So no. It's I know who the character. I've read enough Green Lantern. I know who the character is. That's what the situation is there. But the Blue Lanterns on O'Dim, death is not evil, Guardians. Those who bring it prematurely to others are. That was an interesting statement. Some of the deaths in this series are premature. What will happen there? Is there a chance to undo it? That's still a question I have, and I love that bit because St. Walker's playing right into things that I'm thinking right there. I love that their discovery that Hal has arrived comes from their rings being able to save them from the Orange Lanterns. The interactivity there that we're talking about, we want to see, is so awesome. Carol's comments on the beauty of the planet matches the peaceful nature of this core. This would be the ultimate vacation spot for quiet, restful, getaways, and it's almost too quiet in nature to live on, assuming Orange Lanterns invading wouldn't be the norm. But you got to think stress relief is an all-time high in this place. It's like I couldn't live there; I'd go nuts. I could vacation there. There's just nothing. I mean, it's got to be like just calm, quiet, peaceful all the time. Other than Orange Lanterns, like I said. But
so you're saying it's a place you'd go to recharge your batteries?
Yes, exactly. But I wouldn't want to live there. Some places are great vacation spots, but there's not enough happening.
I tell you right now, with all the garbage I'm dealing with, I would love to live there. I really would love to live there. But it's we've both been to Hawaii. You went there for your honeymoon. I went there to visit when my brother was stationed there. And they call it paradise for a reason. And I absolutely, the whole time I was there, I loved it. And I was just enjoying the time. But by the end, because I did 2 weeks there. And by the end, though, I was ready to come home. I was ready to come back to Cleveland, Ohio. I was ready to leave paradise and come back here. Yeah. See, and my brother even said you get island fever after a while. Because it's great. You go to the beach, you get these amazing, breathtaking sunsets and sunrises, but you get that every single day. And by time his tour of his station there, he was ready to get the heck out of there. He moved from there to Florida. Then from Florida, he's like, I gotta get out of here. He moved up he's now in New Jersey. So it's talk about just going from one. I'm not gonna knock New Jersey. It is a nice place to live, I guess.
I could go to the beach and read comics every day.
Yeah,
I could handle that. It'd be tough. It takes some getting used to, but I could do that.
See. That would drive me nuts reading comics on the beach because of all the sand and the possible water and just that. I think that would.
I'd come up with a solution.
Yeah, because I have issues other than reading it at my.
I'd have a
house.
Waterproof backpack. Oh, I don't. See, as a kid, that's where our reading experience is different. As a kid, I used to, bike a lot of, I'd bike to the comic shop. I would bike to parks and stuff like that, for entertainment. So I always had a backpack with comics in there, and I'd go read a couple comics. So I'm used to reading comics, like in lots of different places, and I loved, kicking back in a park and reading comics and stuff like that. I've taken comics to the beach before and stuff. I can deal.
I'm sitting at my desk. I got it open. That way I don't completely open and mess up the binding. I'm careful with it. I'm kind of like, a little bit on the anal retentive side as I'm reading it. I have definite,
See, you know what? Here's the difference, though. You never read comics before bagging and boarding.
Yeah, actually, I did.
You?
Yeah, I did. But they weren't my comics. I borrowed from a guy that I went to elementary school with, Dan Heimsoff, and I borrowed from him. And so they weren't my comics, so I was extra careful because they're his. Yeah, I didn't want to ruin the comics.
So it's a different experience, like my own comic. Well, but I took care of my comics too, but I like to read them, and I like to read them anywhere. So I guess that is the different experiences I read. Well, but Myron, how are you with that? I mean, it's actually, I love the discussion as far as how careful are we with comics. I take care of my comics, and I take care of my collections and everything, but I like to read anywhere I possibly can because I'm reading so many books. So it's if I don't take the chance to get them in, I won't read everything. But Myron, how are you? Are you more like on Jim's end, or do you fall more on mine, or do you fall somewhere in the middle? Where are you at on that?
I'm probably kind of in the middle. I take care of them, but the reality is that they're not a financial investment for me. They're an enjoyment thing for me. But I do bag and board them to keep them safe, just because I don't want them damaged. But I don't look at them as I don't think they're going to have a great intrinsic value later on that I'm worried about their condition so much. But I don't throw them around either.
But they have a personal value for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Funny thing is with me, I don't look at these as a financial value. It's just something weird. It's just one of my, one of my obsessive compulsive things that I have going on that I have to. Okay, extra careful.
That's not a criticism of you at all.
No,
that's pretty normal.
I'm just saying that this isn't based on like financial or I'm just literally I'm like I can't mess these things up.
Mm-hmm.
And even like the comics I've gotten some that I didn't like and I'm like this thing was not a good comic. I still have that same okay. I got to take care of it. Got to put it in the bag of board. For me, I think it's more of I don't want someone to see my care of the comic and say, "Oh, look at that! He's just throwing them around." I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird. I don't want how I want to be perceived in my collection and my dealing with the comics. As I said, it's a weird obsessive compulsive thing I have.
Not really. It's a collection. So I mean, the ways you deal with a collection and what your collection to you is very personal. I think you could talk to 100 comic fans and you're going to find it's the three of us do have similarities in our views, but you could talk to like 100 comic fans and you're going to find that, but you're also going to find unique differences based on that's what makes it a collection. It's your collection at that point. It's not a group collection. So, that becomes a very personal approach. It's neat.
That would drive me nuts, a group collection.
Oh, I couldn't. I couldn't. That I couldn't
Like,
handle.
for example, if Mariah was a comic book reader, you two having to share the comics, that would be, even though that's your wife, but it's still your comics.
I'll share a story with this, because it is one of those things where I will attempt at times, when I find something that I think that she'll find interesting, to give it to her to read, but I'm my own worst enemy there, because I'm doing it for the purpose of, I'm like, well, it'd be great to be able to talk to my wife about some of this. But then I panic the whole doggone time. Like, am I going to get the book back? Is she going to misplace it? Is something going to happen to it? So I'll say that I can go read my comics on the beach, but I'm worried about my wife, who's never lost anything, with a trade paperback or with some comics that I've given her to maybe look at, because I know she's not going to read them right away. So it's like, how long is it going to be in her drawer? When am I going to get it back? Is in that gaping hole in my collection. So I'll say one thing, like I'm not worried about blowing wind and sand and all that stuff. I'm fine with that. But you tell me I don't know when I'm going to get these things back, and I've got the shivers and the shakes. So no, I get when you're saying the OC thing, I get it. I'm totally with you. So I have my own quirks too, and they're there. So this is my wife, and I'm that way. And she would, honestly, she's the way you were talking about your friend, Bart, she would take care of it because she knows how important it is to me and all that. But I know that she's a big novel reader. She was reading books all the time. If she's going to read it, she'll get to it in her own time. And that time frame is, for me, the part where I'm like, I can't handle that waiting. Even letting, like, when you and I used to do, when we started this show, letting you borrow the comics. That was something that was an adjustment for me, because for years the hobby had been mine alone, and loaning you the comics and being like, I knew you would take care of them. I know how you are and all that, but it was like during that time, like, where are the books at? And I'm used to always having my comics at my disposal. It was the strangest, most bizarre thing. I got used to it very fast, and it worked very well when we were doing it. And it wasn't something that I was surprised at how well I adjusted to it. But I remember the first couple times I'm doing it, it became a show joke. But there was parts of me where I was kind of like, I'm really having trouble with this.
When we were doing our Manhunter challenge, I let my sister borrow one Manhunter to read it and get her opinion and get her take on the character and all that stuff. And when I first let her borrow it, I of course gave it to her bagged and boarded and all that. And she takes it out of the bag, starts reading it, and she read it like it was a magazine. So she completely had it folded over, and I saw her walking through her house. She had it rolled up in like basically a roll. It wasn't flattened out. It wasn't in the book, and it was a tube. And I'm just like, ah. I actually went out to the store and bought another copy.
Now, see, that stuff would bother me, but like I'll sit there and say I would take it to a beach. So that shows you how weird. Like I'm open to me taking them anywhere they could possibly go. But here, I will say this. If I went to the beach and I read it and something happened to the book, would I buy another copy? Yes. So I am that same way. I fall where Myron does, in the sense that I want my books in good care. I want to be able to read them again. I kind of pretend to myself that I've got a financial value to them. And I'll say it to my wife, well, it's a great investment. It's not, though, if you don't intend on getting rid of them. Like, I'll sell comics sometimes on eBay, but it's usually to replace them with a hardcover or a trade of the same comics.
See, when I buy the trades, I don't get rid of the floppies.
I don't as much anymore either. I used to do it, especially in college. I had to do it. I got rid of stuff that I wish I never did. I look back and I'm saying, what was I thinking? Some of it I rebought. Actually, a lot of it I rebought. What am I talking about?
I go so far as to, I have them in boxes, and I have Comic Base, which is a database program.
I use the same program. Isn't that awesome?
and I went and got the barcode scanner. So, I'm putting the books, I'm cataloging them. Not that I'm ever going to need to use that necessarily, but it's nice to track the value over time and things. But it's just kind of funny, to go that far with it, to buy a program and track the value. And
I like seeing the value, though. So yeah. I do. I'm with you. I get that. So, I say that, and I totally get the fans are saying, wow, it's great watching the improved worth. And I love that. So I'm not saying I don't do that, but I'm realistic enough now about myself to know that I don't like parting with these things. Yeah. I've got so many comics that in order for me to possibly reread my entire collection, I'd have to quit my job.
Yeah, I occasionally tell my son that I'm tracking the value of his inheritance for him.
Mm-hmm. So it is, unless they are a diehard comic fan, that stuff's going to a flea market or something. Yeah. It's kind of the reality of it. Unless they get interested, it's like finding Dad's baseball card collection or something like that might have a ton of value to it. But if you're not a baseball fan, to you it doesn't have that. You find people. That's where people find things that are gold at garage sales and stuff. But it is to us, and that's any item has an immeasurable value. There's things that go for sale on eBay for high prices that it's insane, but it's because they're rare and hard to find, and they are of value to somebody somewhere. That's the nice thing about having an eBay around now, is you can just kind of sell almost anything. Larfleeze. Just get back to the book. It's easy to get on comic book tangents. Larfleeze's greed is so strong that it shakes the foundations of the planet to the point that the lantern starts shaking. And we see quickly why he disappears, but I loved seeing that that's the kind of power he's packing. Okara is being overrun by Black Lanterns who ultimately want to take back the pieces of themselves using emotion as trade. Larfleeze is almost done for, and he's just hysterical. Like, every scene he's in, you can't help but laugh, but the Red Lantern shows up for the Orange Battery. Now, is Atrocitus trying to gather the various pieces of the emotional spectrum to mount his own offense? Instead of teaming up, taking control instead? What did you guys take that's going on here? Because, we get this new Guardians blurb at the end, which was very cool. I'm assuming this stands for the representatives of each corps being a part of these new Guardians. But what is Atrocitus trying to do here? What did you guys take that as?
I really couldn't get a grasp as to what his plan was, why he was there. There wasn't enough about the scene where we saw him in last to get any indication as to why this became a directive for him. It'll be interesting to see. I'm hoping they flesh that out a little bit next week in the next issue.
I took it completely that he's doing what the others are doing, but he's taking the power instead of going, let's work together, guys. Together we're stronger than we are apart. No, I think he's saying, I'm going to take the Orange Lantern. Then after I get the Orange Lantern, I'll get the blue. Then he's just thinking, get all the power so he could, kill them all off. Because if you remember, he knew about the prophecy of the Blackest Night. So he has to know that all the color spectrum is needed to defeat the Lanterns. I'm assuming.
I gotta agree. It's interesting to see. I don't know. That's one thing I like about Atrocitus now is he was very, like we talked about earlier, he was very one-dimensional for me. And now he's this interesting, multi-layered character who can be unpredictable at times. I like that about him now. So it's kind of fun to kind of wait and see what he's doing. It's a
development of a character right in front of us. And it's, as I said earlier, this issue is one of those things that really makes me want to keep the color spectrum going. And we talked about last time, kind of like a new UN, but just of all the different colors. I think that'd be a kind of a neat thing to go with.
I want to talk a little bit about Green Lantern Corps number 42. I know we talked about the big points. real quickly on the last episode, but this Patrick Gleason artwork on here is something that I've liked since he's been on the book. I love his take on the various races. I love seeing that it's not just the Lanterns that we're used to seeing, like your Kilowoggs and your Guy Gardners and your Kyle Rayners. There has been a cast that's developed through here that's been so well developed. You know, the Rann Thanagarians, these type of these are characters who are just so interesting to follow and see how they deal with the politics of their races being enemies.
But they're good teammates. They're good friends, and I like seeing that grow.
And that developed out of respect, soldiers' respect for each other in battle, recognizing that the two of them are stronger together, respecting each other's cultures in a way that they never could have before they were teamed up. Because these are two guys that hated each other at the start. And now we see the two, and that's a great 42 issues of progression of these characters, and they're at a place right now where they're so interesting. That has been, I toss around a lot of times which is my favorite Green Lantern book, Green Lantern or Green Lantern Corps. And if you had to ask me, I need both of them so much for the differences that they offer, and it's because of this type of thing, this development of this large group of lanterns and how each one of them is important. This is a team book that is truly developing a team. You know, it's not just focusing on one or two. It really is. There's been so many spotlight issues on various lanterns in here that have really fleshed these guys out, and the interactions between them has been, I've loved this. It's been a joy to read.
Ditto. Seriously, I always said that the Green Lantern Corps is my favorite Green Lantern. I love the concept of it, just the intergalactic police department. I like seeing these different people together, and as much as Hal is my favorite Green Lantern, I do put him out there as my number one. It's, I do like this core concept. I do like seeing these differences, the variations, and that's something really Blackest Night has really brought forth. Especially with seeing the fallen lanterns come back as the Black Lanterns. Just the interaction that they're dealing with. Kilowog stuff where he was dealing with Lantern Ermey. Well, for me, was just a great story just going out. They introduced the character, and he was the main trainer. At his base, it's based off of R. Lee Ermey, who is one of my favorite actors. So I like seeing that going on, and just who and what behind Kilowog, why Kilowog's the way he is. You see it, coming from how he learned to be a lantern, and the sacrifice that Lantern Ermey made. I was just like, I ate that kind of stuff up, seeing this grow and this play out in front of me.
I know every time I read an issue of this series, it just reminds me of how much I missed it while it was gone. And I really appreciate how much time they've spent crafting three-dimensional characters for new Green Lanterns, because it would be so easy to just have some wacky-looking aliens that they throw on a page, but they've really been intentional about creating characters who have gripping stories.
Well, that's my experience with Green Lantern. I read a number of issues of the old Green Lantern Corps series, and I didn't read everything. I did read runs, where I read, good, arcs, and one of the things I always remembered was just how vividly, like, I remember characters like Arisia and characters like that, and it's great to see those characters back, but I loved that they could have taken the easy route and just pulled back every old lantern that they had, and to me, that would have cheapened this book. And that's not a knock on the previous offering. It's more of what was great about those characters at the time, where they were all fresh, they were all new. It was fun to learn about them. It was fun to get into their heads and to see how they interact and what those relationships were like. And that's the nice thing here, is because we are pulling in the old classic lanterns. We're pulling in relatives of old classic lanterns, but then we're also pulling in new lanterns with new stories and new ideas, and the interactions of those varied elements in this book is what I think makes it so great. It's that you're getting a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, a little bit of column C, and you're just throwing it all together and getting something very new and wonderful and fresh that 42 issues in, this series still keeps knocking out of the park.
I liked with the twist here where we start seeing after it reaches 100%. The fight's going on. It's hard and heavy. As soon as they're at 100%, devour will. It was no longer about getting new powers, getting new people. It was about taking out the colors. And I thought that was something I was like, oh my God, that's just wonderful.
Because we never knew what 100% meant.
Yeah, I figured it would mean the big bad would show up, but I figured there would still be these individual fighting. No. They're done with gathering what they don't need pieces parts anymore. Now they got to go for the big win. And I thought that was just a cool way to show it. And just they break off the tack completely, all emotion, everything that all those psychological games they were playing before are done and gone with because they don't need to play it off anymore. They don't need the emotional response from the Lanterns or from the heroes. What they need to do now is destroy that battery. And it was just, complete siege on the battery.
Can I talk about you made a comment about Kilowog, and I really enjoyed this Kilowog sequence. Not only it was great to see the difference in his sense of honor and his sense of this training and how proud Kilowog is, to see him dealing with the fact that these Lanterns, who he dealt with the fact that they died, these were his group. These were his responsibility in his eyes. And to have to see them coming back, knowing that their names have been inscribed there, that this was something that was part of being a Lantern. This is what he trained people for, that you would give your life for the Corps in honor of duty. This is like military style respect. And so why, your tombstone there, that is a badge of honor that you're there. Why would you think that you're more special than that you don't belong there, that this is something, and to him, it spits in the face of what he's believed in. And his frustration at the end where he's looking at him, you were all Lanterns. All Lanterns die. Lanterns die. And I'm like, whoa! Just a powerful moment as he's watching that.
And I gotta admit that I'm a bit of an idiot. When I was reading this, I didn't notice that some of the Lanterns in the fight were never full-fledged Lanterns. Mm-hmm. They had the blank circle on their chest. They never earned their insignia. They died before they could get it. And naturally, those would be the ones they would send after Kilowog because he was the training officer. They died under his watch, under his care. And I was like, oh my God. Because I was really just focusing on Lantern Army, and the personal connection there. I was just thinking they were Lanterns. No, these were Lantern trainees. These were rookies. And I was like, oh, that is cool.
Well, their outfits make them look like Black Lantern trainees because they don't have the full-fledged, the black hand symbols on.
That was something, I got to be honest with you, until you just said it now, I didn't notice. And that's a tiny detail that I really appreciate as well.
Yeah, that's a kind of a neat little, just nice, moment, in the comic, and just something that it took me a couple read-throughs before I actually noticed that.
I didn't. I'll honestly admit I did not notice it, and I think that's very, very cool. Soranik and Kyle here. You know what I really loved about this? We saw Jade come back, and Kyle having to deal with the fact, because we've seen that Kyle loves Soranik, and there's a relationship there, but that he hadn't completely let go of his past either. And that was in conversations with Guy, and I loved that development. Because that's something where, as you're moving on with a new relationship, letting that go and seeing if that relationship is, because it becomes something new.
It's hard to do. And,
right.
It's a natural human reaction that you still hold on to that something, especially considering Jade is dead. If it was if she had just left him, moved on, it's easier to get through. But when someone dies on you and you have you don't have that final closure moments, just that final end to it all. That it's still going to leave some lingering there.
I love that she found an interesting solution to get Jade to shut up, though. The fist in the mouth. And I love how that continued to play out because you see the two of them, and if you think I'm going to let some abomination like you destroy what I have, and Kyle coming back with what we have, they have this. I should have seen the writing on the wall. I didn't see it because this so looks like, oh my gosh, one of these two are done for.
And I didn't see it while,
I didn't.
It was,
But when the power level exceeds and you see her because she's still got her hand in the mouth.
Yeah.
Just it was a moment where I just chuckled all the way through. And Soranik, talk about a kid. This is my favorite Lantern out of the new ones. She actually I could go on the line and say she might be my favorite Lantern in this book. Because when she was that doctor all the way back in Recharge, and we got to see the development of this character and where she went. Such an incredibly interesting character that I've loved her insecurities and what it took for her to become the Lantern that she is today, and how we've kind of gotten a journey with her in this series to see her become a confident. I consider her a veteran in this book now, and I love that journey has been one that we've gotten to go on with her, and it's something that I think old readers and new readers can kind of enjoy, and that to me is the key when you can take so many. I loved the history. Kilowog is just, I've known Kilowog as a character since I was a child. Same thing with Hal Jordan. And, Kyle, I've followed Kyle's journey when he took over for Hal. John Stewart, these are all characters who I love. Guy. But she is a character now. She is in that class for me of characters. I worry about her in events like this.
And it's funny because we both said, I didn't see it. It was a great layout. We didn't see it. We knew the ending of this issue. At least,
when I read it, absolutely, yeah.
But still, seeing those two together, I was so caught in the moment of just that's a really cool thing with them. It wasn't dawning on me, oh my God, that's really foreshadowing to the ending.
That's the funny part. You're right. I knew the ending because we discussed it on the show. And
it just those two just seem so right together that it's just such a great, a perfect couple moment. We talk about how Lois and Clark have those great couple moments. Mm-hmm. Right there, these two have a great couple moment.
This double-page spread of the giant lantern and all of the Black Lanterns swarming towards it, that was just really another shout-out to just the whole art team on this book, because it just, is that a breathtaking scene. I would love to see this on a film.
Oh, God, yeah.
In the Green Lantern movie, to get that concept of, I'm not saying it has to be Black Lanterns, but I'm saying, in the Green Lantern film, I would love to see the Corps and just to see a bunch of lanterns flying around Oa in this type of scene.
Yeah.
Something just looks iconic and powerful and just makes you go, wow.
Yeah, to see the central battery just, standing up there, had the, kind of moment.
I always hear the theme to The Last Starfighter when I see that kind of an
there's a movie. Yeah, absolutely. I want one of those video games. Guy. Here's a guy. Talk about another character that has... I remember when I first read Guy, and for years, just a completely unlikable guy. He was the bully that you wanted to see somebody beat up. I don't know, Myron, if that was your exposure with Guy.
I always thought he was a real butthole.
Yeah. And you just wanted to see him get punched. Those were your favorite scenes. When he opened his mouth, everyone knew that kid in the school playground, and Guy was that kid on the school playground.
My introduction to Guy was when he first got that yellow ring, and it was the issue where he got that yellow ring, and he was calling himself Warrior. Mm-hmm. I really didn't even know who the character was. My buddy in Bowling Green, he was a regular DC Universe, and he's the guy who brought me more into DC than what I was. And he's like, "Oh, you got to read this." And the issue only has one word in it. After he goes through and completely, he's flexing out the ring, seeing how good it is, and he's just completely decimating whoever he was going up against. And then the last page, he goes, next, and you see this line of bad guys as he's just going one at a time, just seeing what the ring can do. That was my introduction to Guy. So I was like, oh, this guy knows how to throw down. So I was reading some back issues on him, started reading a little bit more about the character, and I was like, this guy's what's going on here? And it completely threw me that this character who had this great issue, that I really liked, was really this big, massive jerk. And so I really I go from moments of loving and hating him. Even to this day, I still have those things. Yeah, and it's still have that, just that.
Because I love him now.
Yeah, well, here I do love him, and then there will be something will happen. I'm like, dang it, Guy, why'd you do that? And it's more like, I don't want to say hate. It's more like he's my buddy, and I'm like, dude, come on, you know better.
Oh, okay.
It's that
you're making a personal connection. Yeah, I do groan at choices that he makes.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff where I'm like, I see myself being there with him, saying, dumb, knucklehead, and smack him on the top of the head.
But it's from a different standpoint.
Yeah, it's not a hate, oh, God, this is terrible. No, it's a hate as in, dude, you know better. Why
would you do that to yourself?
Loving moments is right here where he's like, okay, we're dying with our boots on, people. not in our house, pour it on. I was just like, oh, there you go. That's Guy. That's the warrior. That's the guy who I want on my back. You know, if I'm in the middle of a firefight, this is who I want ring slinging with me because he can throw down.
I love seeing all the lanterns there, though, from the Corps. That whole group there. You know, it's especially Arish is one of those. I don't know, Myron, if you're the same way. Arish is a character. I remember her relationship with Hal. She's a character I have a fondness for.
Yeah, very much so. You know, I kind of want to see her and Hal at least have a discussion about what happened and where things went. But yeah, she's one of those great characters. And I think Guy's issue is he has no filter. You know, whatever comes to his mind leaves his lips before he really has processed what he was thinking.
I like that his mind's evolved, though,
yeah,
than being just a thug and a bully like he used to be. There's more to this character. Experience has taught him. He's been humbled enough times that we see a man here, he's fallen in love. You know, and we've seen that those events, like they would naturally with any person, have affected him. He's experienced true friendship and camaraderie and learned to appreciate it. And and there's a difference between true friendship and intimidated friendship. You know, because he's a bully and he can, you know, hold his own. He's on a team for all that. But you're not really a friend with anybody then. He's developed real, true friendships that I think that's shown. It's a great example of character growth, again. How a character can evolve over time in such a way that it makes sense and you can root for him. And you're right, Jim. There's times where I'll beat my head against the wall with him sometimes. But it's in a different tone, because you want him to have it good. You know, you want to see him make all those, say the right things. Like you said, he's got no filter, Myron. You want to see him watch himself a little bit more. Can I say something, guys? I have the utmost respect now for Mongol wearing all those rings, because I've got on the pack-in rings right now as I'm talking this, just because I thought it would be funny. I knew it would come up at some point in time, but it's really uncomfortable wearing all these rings. So Mongol was wearing them all, and he had this big greedy smile, and he was so happy and all this stuff. And you know, I'm wearing the orange one. I'm all mine at the moment and all that stuff, but that's on my middle finger, and it's not comfortable. These are just not, like, I'm wearing 6 rings right now, and they aren't comfortable. Just saying. So Mongol, and I'm, you know.
Well, his more, you know, I guess he probably had them sized, you know, because they look like they fit him nicely. So I'm assuming there's maybe.
Well, these stretch.
Yeah, well, but it does dig into the bottom part of your hand. You know?
Oh yeah, that doesn't look comfy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not at all. I'm just saying. These pack-ins. Do you guys like the pack? I love the pack-ins.
Yeah.
I want more pack-ins. Like little plastic, you know, whatever they cost them for these type of things.
It's worth it.
It's like worth getting the issues. I'm giddy when I open my comic box and I've got these rings in there. I don't, you know, after these events, what am I going to do? I'll put them on the shelf and like have them on display or something like that. But I mean, to have them, I think it's the coolest thing in the world. And they're just these dinky little plastic rings. But kudos to DC for recognizing that we want these.
Yes.
And they're wearable ones, because so many times they come out with, you know, the different little statues they've had with pack-in rings. They're part of the statue, are not supposed to be wearable, and it's just a fun thing to have.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it makes it fun.
I tell you though, it does make me want to get the more expensive ones, the nicer rings, and actually have it now. I know me, I wouldn't wear it anywhere other than at a comic book related thing. So just going to work or just hanging out, I wouldn't wear the ring. But if I was going to a convention, I would think about having, you know, a Green Lantern ring, or I don't even know what. Maybe I'd do blue, be a little different, go with the blue ring. I'm not sure, but you know, it's every time I see them online, I see, or when we're at a con and I see someone with one, or I see them at the different booths, I'm like, I'm so tempted to buy one. And I always hold back just because I know I'm not a jewelry guy, and I definitely probably wouldn't wear a Green Lantern ring walking around just because, you know, I'm not, you know, I don't even wear a watch, but it's still something in just watching you wear them, like, yeah, I kind of, you know, like, once again, I want to have a ring again.
I'm waiting for the time you come in here wearing one.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at the Legion flight rings.
Well, you figure, and not to influence you or anything, with how many times we record weekly.
Yeah.
So if you take a look at that's 54, 50 over 50 times because we get together a lot more than we just regularly record. So it's over 50 times.
Yeah. And all the cons I'd wear it, and
so I'm
any
saying.
of these special events we go to.
So that's a lot of times during the year when you break down that dollar value.
Yeah.
Not influence you,
dude. You are evil. You know that, don't you?
It's like the kind of conversations I have with my wife, and I'm trying to justify buying what I want.
And you've got to justify that you're actually going to wear it, and there's going to be a value to it, and that there's something, this is really, like cost effective.
One of those cheap ones, they just won't last that long,
This Construct Dark Matter nonsense was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You saw this coming.
This was a nice, just all overall out-and-out assault on the battery. And I thought, I was glad that it wasn't just them blasting it. They were doing construction. And actually creating something, because that's the main Green Lantern thing, is you create something out of will. We've never really seen it, them constructing different stuff until now. So I'm glad they did have that ability, and they was able to do it for this.
That construct looks a lot like Necron from the original story, but with bat wings added on.
Okay. So it is interesting. I want to see, I think we're going to learn more as this goes on about the hierarchy of these Black Lanterns and how this all works, and if that construct is connected to Necron directly, or if it's something now that's new to the mythos. It's got to be, you're right, if there's a visual cue there that reminds you a lot of that, then there's got to be a connection. I want to know more about Necron and how he plays into this.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so highly interested and captivated in this whole thing. They've unfolded this story in a really good way, though, because what happens is you get new tidbits of information, and because of the way it's crafted, you get time to digest it. We find out with the heroes more of that information, so you really understand what's going on here. Yet you're always left with mystery. You're always left with more clues to decipher, and that keeps you coming back for more because you want to know. You feel like you're more in tune with the story, you're more connected, but then just when you feel like you got it figured out, there's something else. That's fun. To free Vice. That tells you how desperate they are.
That was a great plan. I loved seeing that, and I really, when the Alpha Lantern went in there, I was just like, no, and it's funny because I knew everything that was going to happen. I knew how this was going to play out because we had our discussion. I still caught myself thinking, no, don't do it. Oh, and it's just something, this story really just pulled me in. This was a high energy, but a great storytelling moments that, I'm loving about comic book reading. I'm loving about Blackest Night, whether it's throughout the green titles, through the main miniseries, through any of the extra add-ons, they always have that same type of feel to it where it's that constant bam, bam, bam hitting as the story's going on. It's just, this was no exception. I knew all the secrets. We always talk about, with spoilers and, just the various, does that ruin things? Like when there was that whole debate when after Kyle was parallaxed, when he came back from being parallaxed, and they showed him, before it actually played out in the story, people were like, oh, that ruined it. And, right here, this was an example. I knew the outcome, but I didn't know how it got there. I didn't see and read the story until I was reading it, and it still had me in there. The journey still had me there, yeah.
Because otherwise it's just a cheap happening. If the journey's not interesting, it's just a cheap happening. It's just for shock value and all that. This is one of those things, I've got to say, it was emotionally stirring for me to see Kyle go through all this. It actually gets funny. It reminds me of when Hal did die.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not comfortable. I don't want to see Kyle dead. They can't kill Kyle. And I'm still completely and utterly convinced that we have not seen the last of Kyle. Not only have we not seen the last of Kyle, but that Kyle will be back as a Green Lantern at the end of this. And I don't know. I don't know why I'm convinced of that, but I can't imagine it. He's too cool a character.
Yeah, I don't see him going away at all. I think this is just this is a necessary story beat for this story, and it's part of the overall what the story that Jeff is trying to tell. It's part of that whole thing, death and resurrection, and you almost need to have a meaningful death to give some impact to the story.
Yeah, I absolutely adored the whole thing. I thought it was.
Now, here's something though that I did notice in his death. It was a great sequence. Nowhere do we see them say connection severed. We see a bunch of these Black Lantern rings all around him, but are we going to see these Black Lanterns come back? So after Kyle has this sacrifice where he dies, he gives his life for the cause, it wasn't enough to kill them. Or was this enough of a blast to take down those Black Lanterns?
It wasn't so abrupt that it depowered the rings. Because if you look, none of those rings have the Black Lantern logo on them anymore.
Wow.
True. Yeah.
Interesting point. So what does that mean? I don't know. The framing of that, it was beautiful. It was just a beautifully well framed sequence. Well, and the question is too, is it possible to completely destroy a Black Lantern, considering that they're not really, where are they being downloaded from? And I think that's what I want to know at this point. Where is this information being downloaded from? I mean, it's obviously being pulled from the person. I get that, but I mean, what is the ultimate?
Yeah, where's the initial download come from?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from the person, obviously, but I just because it's the ring is downloading this information before it even gets to the body. So how is that? And that's why I want to see what this place is that Necron is at, what this way station is, and what all that is. I want to know more about how this works. I'm sorry, Myron. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say is we need to know how it works. And I'm hoping that's what we're going to see in the next issue, because next issue, Necron is right there, and I'm sure we're going to have some kind of dialogue or some explanation somewhere, maybe not in issue number 5, but somewhere along the way we're going to see something about how did it work? How did his plan come to fruition?
And I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about this series and what makes it rich and interesting to be a part of reading Blackest Night has been that I am constantly, with every issue I read in any book that's associated with this, I'm sucking in every little tidbit and clue that they have, and I'm so excited to learn more and read more and find out more. It's just this, talk about an event that feels epic. This feels epic to even understand fully what's going on here. It just feels epic. At this point in time, we're halfway through the series, and I'm still learning things. And I'm like, how do you wrap this up when you're still feeding people information as they're going along? And I love that. I'm just like, every issue, I want more.
It was, something I was just thinking of, and it just clicked in my head. We saw how, with there was the sneak peeks of Guy Gardner, Red Lantern, and obviously it's his reaction to Kyle's death is probably going to be the trigger to enrage, but it's probably going to be Vice's ring that goes to him, and Vice's ring is right there, because when the Alpha Lantern takes out Vice, you see the ring fly off, and so it's right there. And if we have an initial rage or reaction, that's probably just going to do a right beeline over to Guy.
Right.
So now, are we going to get the same? Is it the same deal that we had with Hal, where he has the double rings, or did he go pure Red Lantern? I
don't know. The outfit in the sketch looks a lot like his old outfit when he was Warrior. So I don't know. God, I hope that doesn't. I don't want to see that remain permanently, because I like Guy as a Green Lantern now, and seeing this character continuing to mature and continuing to grow, I think that has made him very interesting. There was, on the forum was brought up, and I think it was Jared who brought it up on the forum, and I apologize if I'm off on this, because I'm just shooting this off the top of my head, that one of the rumors, or one of the things that have been discussed in other forums and things, had been this concept of the Lanterns having 2 rings when they're done to kind of balance each other out. And I'm fine if some characters do, but I don't want to see that across the board being, I want to see a Green Lantern Corps. I want to see a Red Lantern Corps. I like, especially the Green Lantern Corps. That's one that I'm really picky about, that I would like to, I need that, see that stay as a Green Lantern group. I don't mind if they explore it for a little bit and then it, with the idea of it being a storyline driven thing where we eventually see it go back to that, that's fine. But I ultimately want to see a Green Lantern Corps, because I love the Green Lanterns. I love this concept of them. And I just think that is interesting. I don't know. Like, Guy, I'm very protective of now. Kyle, I'm very protective of now. I'm a Hal guy, too. So, I totally agree with that sentiment. But those 2 guys are guys I'm really protective of. I'm curious to see John Stewart, because we haven't seen a ton from him in this, and I'm ready to see some Jon Stewart development in this. So I'm glad to see that we're heading in that direction with him, because I want to see him become a player in this, and to get into his head and develop that attachment again with it. I like his character as well. It's very cool to have so many Green Lanterns and enjoy them so much.
You know, it's funny because one of the criticisms that they had of the original Green Lantern mythos was that Hal wasn't unique. You know, he was one of many people. And I really think the way that they've continued to develop these characters is they're all similar. They all have the same power set, but they're also unique at the same time. And they all have value. You know, you almost wouldn't want to not have any of them if you could choose.
Would you guys want to see, it's funny, and actually one of the reasons why I brought up that comment from the forum, would you guys want to see if some characters remained having double rings at the end of this? I'm not saying necessarily that had to be, well, I'm assuming if you're going to do that, you have to have at least some main players doing that in order to really explore the concept. Would you guys want to see that, or do you want to see them completely separate with their own rings, or how do you want to see that? What do you have any?
I actually, on one hand, I'm like, when you initially said it, I was like, yeah, that'd be kind of neat. And then as it's going on, I'm like, no, I wouldn't want to see that. I do want to see the UN we talk about. I think that would be neat, where each of the color spectrum has a guardian, and they all are, you know, together, and it's all one unit dealing with each other and dealing with feuds and warring and factions and, you know, territories and whatnot. But I don't think I'd want to see them splitting between the two. Now, for a story element, that'd be kind of neat, seeing Guy with red and green together blasting the bad guys, or Hal with the green and the blue. I thought that was, I wanted to see Hal keep the green and the blue, because you think about it, the blue strengthening up the green and just, you know, this increasing the power, maybe giving Sinestro a double ring. Yeah, part of me would like to see Sinestro get another green ring and have him go yellow and green together. You know, so but I wouldn't want to see them stay that way.
What about you, Myron?
I think it might be kind of cool to see, but you know, I was just thinking of as I was listening to Jim's comments, that I think it's far more interesting if I had two characters from two different corps working together to get those combined colors, because of the dynamics between the characters, more so than having one character with two rings.
I'd have to see how they crafted the story, if they were going to do it, because I'm with you guys. I'm totally in that, but I say that with a tentative. If the story were crafted the right way, they could sell me on it. I'm sure. It all depends on how. On paper right now, it doesn't sound like something I'm like I really want to see permanently, because I've liked when they've done it in the books, but I think it's far more interesting that it's something that causes the person wearing them to want to get rid of the other ring. You know, it is something where it's a lack of comfort. It might be fun though to see some characters who come to terms with it. So I don't know. I lean with you guys, and I'm right, and I'm with you, because I just got done with my big speech about how I want to see the Green Lantern Corps, but it might be interesting, like the way Alpha Lanterns are interesting, if that makes sense. I hate the Alpha Lanterns, yet they're interesting in the story. You know, like, nothing would make me happier than to see Green Lanterns with green baseball bats beating down Alpha Lanterns.
Yeah,
But what's great about them is you want to see Green Lanterns beating down Alpha Lanterns.
Yeah.
I mean, you need characters like that, so it'd be interesting to see what those dynamics look like if some characters had the dual rings. So I say it, but there's that part of me that's, if they've got a reason to do it, I've got a lot of faith and confidence in the creative teams, you know, Jeff Johns, obviously, but all the creative teams behind this, because, you know, you got Peter Tomasi, and this has just been a wonderfully well-produced and well-put-together, not just this event. You know, I want to take it outside of Blackest Night. Blackest Night, to me, I think, is great for readers who haven't been reading Green Lantern to get into this event and just have a great time. But I think there is something, as a long-time reader now of this series, of reading this, you know, especially this one since Rebirth, to see this play out, having the relationships with these characters and how this is unfolded, it's just wow. And I would encourage people, if you're listening to this and you're like, Blackest Night is your kind of jumping on point to this universe, I would encourage you to go seek out the hardcovers or the trades of the previous offerings. Read Sinestro Corps War, read Rebirth, read, if you haven't read those things, read that and get, primed on this universe and see what led up to this, because I think you're going to connect with this story in an even deeper way.
I'm actually thinking about getting some of the Green Lantern pre-Rebirth
me as well.
stuff. Just to see the, because I've read a couple of stories.
I have a lot of it, but I would love to flesh out my collection and get more of it.
Yeah.
And more, more of the runs. Where I have my broken sets, I would love to start filling them in. So it's been a while since I've had like a thirst to really seek out older material, and I'm like, oof, the Gerard Jones stuff is really good.
And for those people that might go back and they haven't been reading the Green Lantern book, I think if you go back, even as far back as Rebirth, in terms of following the Johns run, you'll see that there was some deliberate, there were some beats that were placed in those early books that are playing out now. When Black Hand showed up back in the beginning of John's run, he actually used the term Blackest Night, and he says the Blackest Night is coming. Way back then.
Yeah, that's I think one of the things about Johns. I like him doing that. He knows. It's throwing out the teaser stuff, and you go back and you can reread those early issues. That was like, I want to say, was that like issue 3 or something like that?
Yeah, it was one of the first 5 or 6. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right there that early in the beginning, and I didn't notice that. I'm pretty sure I probably didn't notice that. The reference to it or any of that stuff, or think that it would go this way. But the fact that he was planning this in the Rebirth, this type of storyline. So that's just another kudos that we always throw out to Jeff Johns. It's stuff like that. It's, pulling from the past mythos, putting a little modern twist on the current storyline that's known. That when he did the Secret Origins, just threw in some more teasers and just some clues leading to Blackest Night in the Secret Origin. So from the very birth of Hal Jordan, it's always been out there. It's always been played out. It's always been just looming, just ready to pounce.
This is funny. Touching on something that we said before, I bought Rebirth when it came out. I read it as it was coming out, and I liked it so much that I got some of the alternate variant covers, because I read the Spectre series that Hal was in, and quite enjoyed that. I think it's a series that doesn't get enough respect for how cool it really was, because I really enjoyed what they did with that book with Hal. But I got some of the variant covers of Hal as the Spectre the Spectre version that they had in there on that series, and I rebought the series in hardcover, so I own that in that version as well, and I still have my singles of that. So I was thinking to myself, when the Absolute came out, the Absolute was solicited, I should say, it's not out yet, that I'm like, do I really? And it was one of those things where I was placing my order. I put it in and out of my order about 5 or 6 times, and I ultimately decided to go with it, to pre-order, because I'm like, well, I can get it at the discount and all that, so let me go ahead and do it. And I am so giddy right now that I was smart enough to do that, because I would have paid easily full boat now that I'm into this storyline. I would have, with no doubt, gone back and paid full boat to own that in Absolute, just because I know they're going to be releasing more of them in the rest of the series, and that is a story that I could see myself rereading over and over and over again for how well it treated not just Hal, but this whole universe. And I think that was the key. Yes, it was a Hal-focused story. It was about bringing Hal back, but it spotlighted so well everybody, which I think it goes back to what is the key of this universe and why are the Green Lanterns so cool. It's not just about one guy. Even though you can spotlight people, you can still do that without diminishing something else. I think it's something that The Flash has done in the best storytellings. Why is Mark Waid's and Jeff Johns' run on The Flash so beloved? And especially when Waid's run, kind of kicked all that love for The Flash off again. I think those runs are interesting and beloved because he did a great job of pulling more and more Flashes into there, which was something before. It was always like if you replaced a hero, you kind of had to make that new hero that was the one, and they had to somehow surpass the other hero. The Flash did a great job of making all of those Flashes valid. and keeping them interesting and making it the different personalities the key to it, and that these guys could all pull from the same power source and have the same powers. And yeah, sure, Wally was the flagship guy like Hal is here, but what was interesting is that all the other guys were just as interesting to follow, and you wanted to see and learn more about them and who they were and where they came from. And that's what's working here with this. And I don't know, I just think it's neat.
To the Batmobile. Let's go. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. Here, ready to move up.
What I want to do right now is I want to go through, there's been a lot of tie-in issues, and I'm excited. It's every time I hear about a new one, I keep expecting myself to go, okay, are we going too far with this? And I'm not. I get excited because I want to see how it's affecting these parts in the universe. I read, there's an interview with Gail Simone and John Ostrander on Newsarama right now, and I was so eating it up because she was talking about her views of events and how she, as a writer, she gets excited for events. And I loved, because the whole conversation was really about how you get into the theme of the event and you get into ways of showing how these characters interact during the event and what kind of twisted way does that event fit into your world that you've crafted for these characters. I loved that whole tone of it. I recommend reading the article because it was great to see the two of them, because they're going to be co-writing a 3-part story involving the Suicide Squad and Secret Six. It's going to take place in the Suicide Squad one-shot and then, issues of Secret Six as well. But I love seeing writers that get excited about an event versus phoning it in. Because that, to me, is, if you're going to do an event tie-in issue, it should feel like, if you're going to take your book and do that, first of all, it's organic to what's already going on in the book, so you don't alienate the readers that are currently reading the book. And it's an interesting balance to do that, yet you want to make the issue interesting and a good jump-on point for readers who aren't. So it's a fine line and a fine balance, but most of all, you have to get interested in and excited to do that issue. Because if it's written in a way where it's clear that the writer just didn't want to do it, then it's going to come across that way to the readers. But the writers that really delve in are like, wow, how can I do this in a way where it's going to be fun and interesting and exciting, and let me get into this and really enjoy that. So I was really enjoying just reading her talking about how she likes doing these type of event tie-ins, because she talked about, the Battle for the Cowl issue that she did in Secret Six, which was great because it was a great issue where you got to see Catman's and Bane's reaction to Batman no longer being Bruce Wayne, there is no Batman at the moment in Gotham, and what was that like? And it was cool to see those characters' reaction. It was a very different story because it was from a Secret Six perspective versus a Batman universe perspective, and it was great. It fit. It worked really well. So when I hear writers talking about stuff like that, I get entertained. So that's why I wanted to talk about the Doom Patrol issue first, because it fits so. The first 3 issues of the story painted a very dark picture for this world that these guys live in. They're misfits and all that, but they've also got a guy running the show in Calder. He's a manipulative.
Yeah.
And so it fit for me emotionally what we saw at the end of issue 3 to come to this point right now where we start seeing people in their lives rise. But I guess what I wanted to ask first, Myron, from you and I talking, I knew you aren't a reader of Doom Patrol. You hadn't been reading that book. And how did you feel did you like this issue? Was it something, first of all, did you feel it was a good Blackest Night issue?
Yeah, I really was kind of interested in seeing how Blackest Night was going to affect some of the titles. So on top of the Ring promo, I wanted to check out some books that I wasn't already reading. And I found the story was really kind of interesting, especially I enjoyed the interaction between Negative Man and Robot Man. I just thought that some of those moments were hysterical. But it got me interested enough that I ended up going out and doing research on the Doom Patrol to look at the rich history of those characters and how some of those interactions played out. And then I went back and reread the book again, and it even added more to that for me. And it actually kind of made me a fan of the book, and I may end up reading it on a regular basis as a result.
The first 3 issues, if you do find yourself getting interested, the first 3 issues are well worth seeking out and reading, because it's a great example of how you can pick up this issue and read it, and it gives you everything you need to know to be kind of on board. But to read some of the horrid things they go through leading up to this, and then to be dumped in the middle of this, and it works so well because they did end off issue 3 in a way that it, with the stuff that was going on. I don't want to spoil it for him, so I'm not going to say anything about that at the moment. I'm just going to say, and Doom Patrol readers who are reading this right now are going to agree with me, they were in a spot that so totally puts them in this mess in a way that emotionally fits where they're at. They were in a turmoil here that left them open to be played with by Black Lanterns and to have that deep emotion. So I really, really liked that. But it's been a cool book. My experience with Doom Patrol has been, I had read some issues of the previous series. I read the entire Byrne run when it was relaunched because that was right around the time we were getting ready to start the show, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of interested in following Doom Patrol and seeing what that's like, and I enjoyed that a great deal. Giffen did a really good job in crafting this in not ignoring much of anything, while still making it his own and keeping the concept, because these are weird characters. They have quirks, they're misfits, they don't fit in anywhere. Their relationships, you get the impression that they have been together for a long time, but for the amount of time they've been together, they sort of like each other, but then kind of resent each other at the same time, because they're almost all reminders of their own flaws. So Cliff can look at Negative Man and see elements of what he dislikes about himself there, and vice versa, and the same thing with Elastic Girl and all that. I'm just like, whoa, it's all that stuff kind of plays in to each other, and I find them incredibly interesting and compelling, because I think as comic fans, we've all at different points in our life had quirks about ourselves that we can relate to in these people. I mean, they're definitely more extreme with these guys, but we've all felt like left out and misfits at some point. I think you work through it at different speeds than these people do, but I do think they make you feel better about yourself. We're really together compared to them.
I'm normal. I'm normal by comparison, so I think that's great.
I almost got an X-Men type feel off of this. And it just seemed like these were a series of characters where the concept, they created a book and the book didn't last, so they relaunched, and then they relaunched. And it's kind of neat to see how Keith Giffen has taken all of those various incarnations of the Doom Patrol and made all those layers kind of work together in this particular piece of their story.
It's funny, and I agree with 100% what you're saying. It's one of those things that's been launched and relaunched and launched and relaunched. But there are runs that invoke deep passion in people. Like we did...
the Painting That Ain't Paris.
Yeah, from the Grant Morrison run, and I could see why people were so into that. And I liked the Byrne run. I thought it was a decent run. I had a good time with the series. I didn't know a whole lot about the Doom Patrol at that time. I mean, I knew them more from crossovers and appearances, Brave and the Bolds and things like that, than I did from Teen Titans, than actually from their own book. So it was interesting now to be reading some Doom Patrol. But this, to me, it's so edgy and very cool that I'm really glad I'm reading this at the moment. It's something that I think it's coming into its own by the time we've hit issue 4 now. But to see the history of the Doom Patrol through the eyes of the second, this next incarnation of the team, who went horribly wrong.
It's I'm not a huge Doom Patrol fan, but it's weird because normally I say, okay, I give a title, a story arc to say whether I'm going to continue reading it or I'm not going to continue reading it. And we had the first 3 issues, the first story arc going on, and I'm sitting there going, I'm like, when I sit there and I evaluate whether I want to continue reading, I'm like, I still can't make an honest judgment about them. I'm still building my feelings about this team. And this issue was another one where it really, I was like, it's like it's adding to the thing where I can't let it go. I can't stop reading it. I can't, and I'll never say I don't think it's good. I think it is very talented writing, and I really do enjoy some of the visual stuff we've seen, but I can't really, it's weird. I don't understand them. And with like all the other titles I read, I can put myself basically in their lives. Like I could be Jimmy Olsen, or I could be, hanging out with Ollie and Dinah, or, one of the Titans. I could see myself in with that role, just associating with them and getting with them. With them, I can't put myself in as a member of the Doom Patrol or as a friend of the Doom Patrol, just because they are so just different and just how they're dealing with stuff. I don't want to keep throwing out quirky and weird, but they have that quality to them that it is hard for me to get a personal attachment with them.
I liked what Myron said about them reminding him of the X-Men, though, and I'm not talking about the X-Men where there was like 20 gazillion titles, and I'm not knocking the X-Men by saying that, because I've enjoyed quite a bit of the X-Men with there being a lot of titles. But again, the gazillion thing, it's kind of me it's sounding snarky, but admittedly I liked the exploration of lots of different aspects of the X universe and reading those as well. So I should take that out of that context because it's really wrong here. But this reminds me a lot of, I remember when I first read the X-Men, it was one title, Uncanny X-Men. It was very family-focused, and when I say family-focused, it was focused on just that core team, and they were quirky and different, and they didn't fit in with your traditional Marvel character, in the sense that if you read the Avengers and then you read Uncanny X-Men, is that just two very different elements of them, and they were clearly the misfits, and they clearly didn't fit in, especially when they interacted with other heroes. So this does remind me very much of that, but with a different twist and a different edge to it, and it's darker. It's a darker X-Men.
See, I completely associated with the X-Men from the first read.
Did you?
And that was this is my passion behind. I was a huge X-Men fan. It was just because I felt like I fit in with these guys. I felt like I was a mutant, and it was especially that was like junior high, that was sixth grade, fifth, sixth grade. So I was I was going through the changes that we all go through. So I was feeling a little bit like an outsider, a freak, and I fit in with them guys immediately. And I was like, I could completely get what they're going through and all that. Now it's the Doom Patrol. It's weird. I don't know how to react to them. I don't know how to interact with them, and it is throwing me off my reading. And I find myself reading Doom Patrol multiple times through, and just actually, and I'm not even reading it. I'm more or less studying it. We had that when we did the trade where I was like, I really got into just reading, trying to get my hands around who these people are. And with this one, we're seeing these past incarnations and the dead coming back from these past incarnations. And, and I was like, with everybody else, with the other titles, I could really understand the emotional attachment and the reaction seeing these dead come back. With these guys, I was like, okay, yeah. I was more like I was studying them and not reading them.
And I could totally relate to you, except I went through puberty earlier than you did, so this took me back to 3rd, 4th grade. So that's when I was coming into my own, but I get it.
You're one of those kids shaving in junior high.
No, I totally echo that. I guess I didn't, in the early issues, recognize. I agree with you that it was that tone and feel that was drawing me in from that. And it is one of the things I get drawn back to the X-Men the same way that I've gotten drawn back to Batman or to Superman or to. What brings me back to those characters are. So that's why I feel really bad that I made that comment about the 20 gazillion thing, because, you
should feel bad.
Well, I don't want it to be like I'm coming off as anti-Marvel, because I'm not. I love Marvel stuff. But what's interesting about those characters are this type of dynamic. They're quirky, they're weird, they're odd, and there's so much to explore with those weird and odd relationships, and it does apply here. And it's great to see that. I think Doom Patrol becomes much darker looking in the bright DC universe with these characters like Hal Jordan and the Flash and Superman, and you dump into reading Doom Patrol. It's like, what? Really?
Yeah.
These are just the unhappiest people in the DCU, but it makes sense. And if you had Niles Calder instead, this is no Professor X.
No.
Niles Calder is using them for his own benefit, in the sense that he wants this. He's got purposes for this squad. It's all about the experiment and the greater good. He's proven that he would sacrifice any one of them, not just physically. I'm not talking about death. Their mental well-being, their physical well-being for the greater goal in his mind. And a lot of times the greater goal is very much what Calder feels it is. So I that's an interesting twist to see that the guy running the show, their big brain, isn't necessarily out for their best interests at all. And what does that psychologically do to these people? And it's interesting. I love seeing that play off in here.
Yeah. I would never advocate violence towards someone who is physically disabled, but to be honest, there's a lot of times I'd like to see Robo-Man just drop kick him.
You know what I think works in this, though, and one of the things I like that makes this book kind of feel unique in its tone is not just that. I love reading the computer screens and then the files and emails and all these different things that they're passing back and forth in a book or excerpts from things. Those little bits where we get really deeply into Calder's head and commentary on each of these individuals and seeing how he really views them, the stuff that he says when he's not putting on, when he's not being as open as he is in his journals, he's not a nice guy. He doesn't exactly. We talked about Guy Gardner not having a filter. Calder has a very small filter. So it's funny, with a guy having that small of a filter, you think you know everything, how low he stoops when he thinks about these characters. When you read his journal entries, he is not a nice man.
It's funny, you almost think you'd find more peace, love, and understanding in the Secret Six than you would here.
Yes, very much so, and I love that. It's actually, the Secret Six is an interesting comparison as well, because I like this book for the reasons I like Secret Six. Mm-hmm. Secret Six is a book that I adore because it's fresh, it's unique, it's exploring things that no other book can. And this book does that too. Like, there's not another book in DC that's exploring things, mental issues, in the way that Doom Patrol is. There's very few times that I want to see a guy in a wheelchair get beat up, but you guys are right. I don't think anybody would have any issue. People in wheelchairs they'd be the first one to push him out, I think. You're giving us a bad name. But it is one of those books, and so many Doom Patrol characters have died.
Because there's a huge coming.
Yeah. And died without much of a memory behind them that they fit in this. But I love Calder's ex-wife being the one to confront him, and how he is just bound and determined. It's always avarice. It's always greed with him. Never fear. Yeah. And he never lets that go all the way through. He's got the thing that Hal Jordan's got. He's got Hal Jordan level consistency. Niles Calder knows exactly who he is. Yeah. And he's certainly settled his score with all of his demons. I don't know that that's a good thing for him, though. We just honored Hal for it. Niles Calder has that problem, and he needs an Orange Lantern ring.
Yeah. Well, he
might be the battery.
He's their parallax.
Yeah. But it is a cool and interesting book because of that. And this is a great example, though, of a writer knowing how to put your book into an event and advance the characters and let us get to know the characters from what is going on in all this. I love the bits with Cliff Steele where we get to see him getting his head replaced, and just look at how quirky Negative Man is. And yet he's commenting on how weird it is that this guy's got multiple heads and stuff like that, where this is a guy who becomes an energy being that leaves his body, that wears bandages all over himself. So, I mean, the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. I tell you, I'd actually, with, of the characters, Robot Man, I think is probably one of my, favorite characters. And he's one I actually do get some association with. And I was just thinking, if I was Robot Man, what would I do? And I would have, different bodies designed for different events. I'd have the lounge around TV body. I'd have the the superhero body. I'd have the boat, the body that's really a boat, so I can go out in the ocean and do some fishing, or I don't know.
But you wouldn't read comics.
Well, not out there. I'd have the comic book reading body, definitely, which would actually be just, kind of like a desk, so it'd have the layout and, the automated arm.
Your body would be the actual desk?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it'd be designed for, those different
Comic
events.
reading.
Yeah.
Right. Now, would your desk body be only used in one location? Or how would that work?
Actually, probably just the one location. I have my reading room or, my reading area.
Hermetically sealed?
Well, not hermetic. I'm not that psychotic. I'm a little neurotic.
But if you could be. But if you could be. If you could hermetically seal the room and read in there, would you do it?
Yeah,
Does he need to breathe? No.
Well, he does need some form of oxygen because he does have a living flesh.
Oh, that's true.
So he can't be in a complete vacuum.
Yeah,
the brain, And I wouldn't want to be in a complete vacuum, Just, I don't know, because in vacuum there is no sound. And there is something about the rustling of the paper as you turn the page.
So you would want, that's true, you would want the page turning sound.
Yeah.
What if we could give you an iPod that would simulate the page turning sound while you were in the hermetically sealed room? There's solutions to all of your issues.
See, there's solutions everywhere,
But Robot Man, I think it's important with his longevity with Doom Patrol because he's the one character that through all the incarnations has been there. He has the relationships, and he seems to be the one guy that, in spite of his quirks, he's the one guy they all seem to like on some level.
Yeah. And he always kind of seems like the Tin Man. And I'm not just saying physically, it's just like that the persona. If you look at the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, he wanted the heart, but he always did have the heart. He just, he always had those emotions. He always had that. And same thing with Robot Man. He wants. I see him wanting to be human again, but he, in his robotic state, he is human. He does have those qualities. He does have that characteristics, and we see him, with some of his interactions with the other team members. Just you see that human quality in him, and you can actually almost look the other way from
Colossus, a little bit rogue.
Yeah. He can look the other way and ignore the robot body and actually even think of it maybe, okay, he's just in a body armor. He's like an Iron Man. There's an actual person underneath.
He is the most, not just the Iron Man reference, but just in general, he is the one in the series, I think, that you latch onto as, he's the most like what we're used to as a traditional hero. And I think you need him as a reference point into this world to a certain extent. I mean, he's got quirks about him and stuff too, just like the rest, but he is the most, I think you're most comfortable saying who is your latch-on hero type character. It would be Robot Man. And I think he gives you an interesting reference point to how strange and bizarre this world really is when you see it with him there. Yeah. Because it does make this world look very, very different than your traditional book. I like seeing the Black Lanterns, like this negative girl and negative man kind of going at it, and seeing that they're able to not only utilize the bodies, but then these negative energy forms independently. Because she's still going on and on with that energy form bursting out of her, which it's just interesting to see how that all works. It's a lot of fun.
So that made it a positive for you.
You're talking about seeing the different versions of...
Or the two negatives.
Two negatives.
Two negatives making a positive.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so that was good. I like that. It took me a couple seconds to catch up with that one, because I was looking at pictures of the two of them and like, wait a minute, what did you just say? I'm like, oh, that's really funny. And who says that doesn't happen? It just did. But I do like seeing, because I don't have the history with that version of Doom Patrol, but I do like seeing that does affect Cliff, and he is seeing an old friend who's still alive, or as much of a friend as these people get, who's still alive, and how much that is really bothering him.
Yeah.
Now, this Dr. Time, I love this being set on Oolong Island, because it goes back to the events we saw in things like 52 and stuff. I'm glad that they didn't just drop that.
Yeah.
And that they used this as kind of a base for the Doom Patrol. And Dr. Time is worried. I would be worried about the Doom Patrol coming after me too, because I think I'd be less worried about them killing me than them giving me to Calder. Because what's Calder going to do to me?
Yeah.
The kind of experiments this guy's going to do on you, I'd just shoot me now.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about them being quote-unquote heroes, that you actually have these thoughts.
It's a gray area.
It's a little bit, this is wrong. This is ethically and morally wrong, and we're calling them heroes.
They're a charcoal area. Yeah. And I do like that. He's trying to say, just let them know. I no longer wish them any harm. Leave me out of this. And these events all come bursting forth right here. And again, we get to see more of the issues with this island, and that there's a political structure there and a security force that obviously Calder has an uneasy relationship with, and the Doom Patrol in general does. This whole weather situation that's going on, again, we get that's like a Storm reference there, just to see these characters reacting there, and you got kind of a giant man here. It is interesting to see these characters interact with each other, and who is the most powerful and why. She's ultra huge, but we're dealing with forces of nature. And she's already been, for people who haven't read this, she has gone in the last couple issues an emotional trauma, especially issue number 3, that she isn't physically spent, she is emotionally spent. What happened to her last issue in particular, mentally she shouldn't still be standing, much less physically. And I love seeing that framed here as she's taken down by this, weather guy. I keep forgetting his name. Yeah,
that was something that did kind of throw me when I was reading this, because if you don't, I needed a scorecard to follow who everybody was and keep going along with that, and that kind of threw me. And it's sometimes when I Legion stories.
So it wasn't enough for you to know that they were like the kind of interim Doom Patrol.
Yeah, I knew who it was, so I could continue going. Tempest. But there was times I'm like, okay, I got to see who is this again. I go back to the beginning, say, okay, yeah, and I was jumping around a little bit, and that is actually something that did throw me. And I have sometimes that problem with Legion stories, because there's such a large Legion that who is this? Oh, okay, yeah.
Are there any other characters named Tempest for the Black Lanterns to collect?
Yeah, because that's the second one.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting here to see this. I like this, biggest heart ever. That would be something, for them would be, again, avarice with him, though. The wife now she's taking, what is she doing to his legs here? Is it acid, or she's burning up his legs?
Yeah.
Or it's crystallizing them or something, and they're being crushed. And
I thought I had bad relationship with my exes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, I mean, geez. It's not like that you have much use for them or anything or anyone. And I love that she did that dig, because she's trying to get to him. And how do you get to him at this point? So she's trying to cause fear. She's trying to cause any other emotion. So what do? And that would be traumatic. Imagine you lose loss of your legs. Now you're losing your legs as they're being crystalline and destroyed in front of you. And she's trying to hit on him that, you don't care about anybody. It's all about you. Trying to maybe get some guilt going, and it's still greed.
Yeah, it's only one thing. He is focused on one thing, and it's mine. Mm-hmm. I really want to see him as a Orange Lantern.
And then we get this. I didn't see this coming. This was talk about, it's hard to surprise you. I figured, they're going to pull out any possible Doom Patrol member you could possibly think of. Who saw Cliff Steele coming? Robot Man's body. Yeah. I didn't see that coming at all.
That was a good usage of it, because that was another.
And it makes sense.
Yeah, bring back. That would be an ultimate, you, buddy, because he's he's struggled with the fact that he's in that robot body. So let's make the ultimate struggle for him. Let's jack it up a bit. And that's, again, it's good usage of the Black Lanterns within the confines of this story.
We've seen this with Cyborg, where Cyborg didn't, has had times where he doesn't feel human. Cliff Steele, does he feel human? Am I human anymore? What is it? To be faced with your human body telling you, are you even me anymore? When was the last time you were? What a way to dig at the heart. And does he have a heart to pull from? What does that look like? I'd be curious to see what it looks like for Robot Man. I'm curious to follow this, and see where it goes. I mean, they did a really nice job of setting this whole thing up.
And again, they did tell a good story inside the confines of the Doom Patrol story. This, continues on a lot of threads that were done in, the first 3 issues, and this is going to continue playing on. I can see them playing off of the events that happened here in future issues of Doom Patrol, and it's as we said, it's something that continues with the great stories of the Blackest Night, where they're giving you a Blackest Night story, but they're not sacrificing the monthly title.
I'm glad they didn't limit these to being one-off issues. Like in an event, a lot of times you'll get a book that only does a single issue. Now, I'm not against those. Sometimes a writer has a story that can and should be told in a single issue. You tell a nice, neat tie-in to an event that fits for that book, and we just kind of move along. And that's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes, like in this particular case, this is going to be a much more interesting story because it takes place over multiple issues. And we get to see these things fleshed out, especially when you're getting into the psychological nature of these characters. These characters have a lot of issues to pull from. So I think it's far more interesting to see them explored on this level. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, do you get Doom Patrol thumbs up, guys? Do you like?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely giving it a thumbs up. It's, as I said, I can
tell you guys are a little bit more tentative on it than I love this book.
Yeah, but... and I'm still tentative on Doom Patrol itself. But I really did recognize how it continued on with the Blackest Night story, but it also continued the monthly Doom Patrol story. It didn't, take you out of the story. It didn't go, okay,
Did you read issue 3?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, issue 3 was the one that had me hooked.
Yeah, as I said, I can't say no. I can't say yes. It's just
okay.
I do have.
I'm
a
not
hard
saying
time
you're wrong.
connecting.
I'm just curious. I'm just kind of because that was the one for me with everything they did in issue 3, and I'm dancing around it on purpose because I don't want to ruin that for Myron. But I with everything that happened in issue 3 and the violation, how that all worked out, I just think it's one of those things where I was like, wow, I'm really into this, and it led so nicely into because it ended that arc, yet leaving them in a place that this is possible. So, which is a good jumping on point then for new readers. You're not dealing with closing up anything. It was cool. It was a good way.
And you mentioned how 3 really sold it for you. 3 did save Doom Patrol for me. I was at 1 and 2.
You were really, okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm thinking I may kill this. I'm going to give it a full story arc. Then when the pre-orders came out, I saw that this was going to be a Blackest Night. I'm like, okay, well, I'll definitely go through 4. And it's 3. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can't say no to this. I can't say no to this. This was a good story. This is a well-crafted tale. I have to give this another story arc. So I'm going to go through the Blackest Night stuff and see how that plays out. And maybe maybe an issue or so after Blackest Night, see if the events of Blackest Night are going to continue to affect Doom Patrol. So it's something. I can't say no to it yet, but it's not Titans Together for me. It's not JLA JSA for me. It's on that. Still trying to figure out my.
Do you think
feelings.
it's because you're not familiar with the characters?
Yes.
Or
big time. That's
is it the concept?
It's more of my familiarity with them and. Well, part of the concept, Legion of Superheroes, no idea who those guys were, but the concept behind the Legion and that whole story arc, I'm like, yeah, these are the kind of heroes I like. Okay, I'm digging this, and that pulled me into the Legion stuff. This is, I don't know who they are. They're quirky. I'm like, is this, and sometimes I'm like, is this too intellectual for me? I want to have, it's sometimes you got to really think when you're reading this. I'm like, I don't know, is this for me? I'm not the smartest guy in the world, I
wouldn't have said that. And I throw you under the bus all the time, but it's usually under nonsense stuff, not like the I don't know. It's definitely, there is a lot going on in the book, and I find that. No, guys, in case when I ask both of you, and I will do this just a quick little couple comments because I don't want to go heavy into this because it's not Blackest Night. But what did you guys think of Metal Men? Or what, Jim, I know in your case you've been reading Metal Men. What did you think of the Metal Men backup as long as we talked about it? Did you enjoy that? Because it's the tone, talk about you couldn't get a more different tone from Metal Men, other than that the robots themselves have their own quirks and issues and things. So I guess thematically they do belong together. So they do fit in the same book, but the tone is definitely more light and friendly and happy and all that type of thing in it. What did you guys think of Metal Men? Myron, why don't we go ahead and do on that one?
Well, I'll be honest. I've never really had an appreciation for the Metal Men.
Okay.
It was a fun read, but I could take it or leave it, to be honest.
I like the Metal Men. I'm actually, with the issues 1 and 2, of Doom Patrol, I think it was Metal Men I enjoyed more because it's something that, and then with the Wednesdays comics, when we had them in there, I was like, yeah, this is, I'm digging who the Metal Men are, what they're about. They're a nice, light read, nice, light, fun read for me. I actually would probably want to see them be a second feature in a different title, and I can't even tell you what title I'd want it to be in.
I wouldn't.
Just because, and part of it is because I don't have a strong affection for Doom Patrol. I'd like to have them in a title that I did have an affection for. That way, the entire read-through would be like, yeah, this is great.
See, with issue 1 and 2, I would have firmly agreed with you because it was Metal Men that I was enjoying more. But with 3 and 4, with how much I'm enjoying Doom Patrol there, it's Doom Patrol has, and I think I got a funny feeling that's probably going to be the roller coaster ride with these books. Doom Patrol now is eclipsing for me Metal Men, which I didn't expect. But I really dug Doom Patrol in 3 and 4. So it is interesting to see that. And Myron doesn't have that point of reference for the first 3 issues of Metal Men on that. But it is interesting to see. Like, Myron, if you keep reading at this point in time, is it keep reading because of Doom Patrol at this? I'm guessing from your comments.
Yeah. I would be reading it for the Doom Patrol piece. And the story was strong enough that I'll probably pick up a couple more issues after the Blackest Night thing to see if this is a book for me.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I almost looked at it as this is the reflection of the Secret Six. And in both of those books, this story and Secret Six are kind of the books I might read in between other books that I really enjoy them, but they're a different tone that you need to kind of clear the palate with.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great that's a great comparison actually, because I that's one of the pure joys of Secret Six for me is, I mean, Secret Six is on a completely different level.
Yeah, it's for me.
For me, I mean that's
me too.
But the thematically putting them together is where it fits. Doom Patrol's rising up for me though. It really is. I mean, I'm clearly in a different place from the two of you on it because I'm really sold on Doom Patrol with 3 and 4. 3 was the one that did it and put me over. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting to talk about. Guys, can we talk about Rebels?
Yes.
Number 10.
I'm so glad that I read that annual.
Well, I guess I want to talk about Myron going back to Rebels. Now, are you a Rebels reader, or was this your first issue of Rebels?
This was my first issue of Rebels.
Now, I guess my question, and I'd love to know this, and I think that's interesting. How accessible was issue 10 for you as a new reader? Because I can't comment on that. I've read all the first 9 issues. I've read the annual. So I'm pretty invested in the lore of this Rebels right now. Did you find this accessible?
I found it difficult to read. I've had to read it through a few times to try to get it more because I don't understand the characters. Not that there's anything wrong with the way they're written. I just don't have the experience with them. I didn't find it to necessarily be a good place to jump on. Mm-hmm. I struggled with it
because there's a lot of story that had been going on at this point, and you're kind of dumped into. I found this to be a great issue. I loved issue 10 of Rebels, but you and I have both read
and
this was one of yours that was on the chopping block.
Yeah, Rebels was on the chopping block for me, and it was really the annual that saved it. Then I went back and I reread this stuff, and I was like, okay, I get why there's been some talk about people really liking this series. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm getting it, and I liked it, and this was this was just another classic example of how Blackest Night done right in the title. It gives you the action of the Blackest Night. It gives you their interaction with it, but it never once sidetracks the actual Rebel story, being this whole Starrio the Conqueror story arc where his Brainy's kid gets kidnapped. Well, not kidnapped. They take the kid and what the kid's going to be able to do with it. It's, what? You're laughing at me. Starrio. Come on.
It's a new breakfast cereal.
Starrio. Yeah. Starrio and his friend Oreo are going to go in. They're having a major battle with Cookie Monster, and it'll be... or Veggie Monster, as it was rumored on the internet that Cookie Monster was going to be. But
no,
it was ages ago.
Okay.
That was an internet hoax.
For a second there, I thought, man, if they're doing that, I'd be mad.
No.
Oh, I'd be angry. But
I talk Cookie Monster a lot lately on this show, but I must have a Cookie Monster fetish or something. This is a book, though. It was funny when I was reading this one, and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about it, Myron. I love Rebels. I think it's a great book. It's one that the annual I thought was absolutely stellar, but I do think it's a book. One of the things I love about it is it's space opera. And with any space opera, I loved the old Flash Gordon serials and things like that. But with space opera, in order to really, you've got to be watching the whole serial. And it unfolds over time, and it's a long, far-reaching story. And this has been one of those, this Starro story has been big. It's been building a long time. I don't want all my books to read this way. But we talked about how Doom Patrol and Secret Six are very different from other books in the universe. This is very different from every other book that we're mentioning over here because of that feel. And I like this space opera feel of this. So that, for me, it takes me back to my childhood of watching those serials. But this is like coming into, I remember the Ground Round used to run the old Flash Gordon and Batman serials and stuff like that. This is like walking into the Ground Round at like the 3/4 point of the serial. You have no clue what's going on. And no matter how much you read of the lines that are going on the bottom, you don't understand anybody's motivations or how they got there, or half the time that Buster Crabbe is supposed to be Flash Gordon because you don't know who Flash Gordon is at that point. And as you can tell, I've walked into the Ground Round at that point. I didn't get an appreciation for these serials till I actually got to the Ground Round at the right time one year. But we have this restaurant called the Ground Round that used to run old black and white serials on the back wall, and they looped them. So depending on your luck of being there, you could catch a whole serial.
Wow.
Enough of it that like you really felt indoctrinated into it. But you could also come in at a time where it's like you're catching the tail end of one, and then they'd run shorts. So it was all the old classic space serials, science fiction ones, and then some comedy shorts like Three Stooges and stuff like that that would run through. So it was old, classic old film stuff. So it was fun to see that. But this, to me, this issue, and it's not a knock on it, I love it, but I questioned how...
Yeah, I kind of figured it'd be a little bit...
Although I would say this, for people who read this one, and I don't know if, Myron, if you're in this place, if you read this issue and you find that you're interested in these characters and you start latching onto them or something like that, and you're like, okay, I'm confused, but I'm finding enough here to draw me back, especially if you read the whole arc, I would recommend to people that you go back and read from the beginning and then reread these issues again, because to see how they got to this point and then to experience it here, because issue 10 for me was a home run, but I've read 1 through 9 in the annual.
This definitely is, I think you really need the background to really get and enjoy, and it just seeing Brainy here, and that's I love the ending. I love the ending of this issue with him getting the yellow ring. I thought that was just so perfect. I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting seeing now with him get that power on top of it now.
And see, I didn't read the old Rebels series. I was reading DC Comics at the time, and Rebels came out when the Legion series came out. When a Legion, I'm talking about the Legion that this character, this Brainiac, was in previously. I remember those. I read like an issue or two of each book, but I didn't have any room in my budget for them. So I'm familiar, but I have no basis on like stealth or any of that history. I don't know how much, I know it was pulled from that. To see her rising up, though, and having to deal with... I love that Dad here is not concerned about his son out of any love or loyalty. He's concerned about his son getting his brains back because of what that will do with Starro.
Yeah.
So he's totally willing to keep his kid not only dumb, but to sacrifice him completely as long as the kid doesn't get his brains back so he can free Starro. I love that. That, to me, was... just such a great race in the whole thing. And here he's a character who I like him, and I shouldn't.
Yeah, you just want to smack him. He's a character you do want to smack, and you're just like, but there's a appreciation. There's an
reading
appreciation of the logic. There's appreciation of who the character is. There's appreciation of the consistency.
Yes, of keeping
big time.
Amen. Jinx, buy me a Coke. It's you and I are both thinking the same way with this character, and that's what I love about him. They don't try to make this guy some kind of emotional,
likable.
Like all of a sudden, like all of a sudden he connects with his emotions and he's this lovable guy. That's a nice twist from this, is that he stays consistent, and it's the other characters reacting to him that is interesting, not changing him up. And I like that. The whole bit with the son, though, where he protects. Now, I wonder if this side of him that we see when the son, remember, he's still brained at this point because of his dad, he protects these people who dad had escorting him.
Yeah.
To save their lives. Would he do that now that he's got his brains back? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think part of the heightened intellect is looking at the lesser creatures, and that's quote unquote lesser creatures around him. Because they're not equal to him. He would just see them as, are we protective of an ant walking across the sidewalk? No, we crush it, just for the heck of it, even, or because it's in my way and it's bothering me or something. I think once he got his intellect back, he probably had that same mindset, because we see that with Brainy, where he would sacrifice any of them. It's nothing for him. They have their purpose, to serve for his goal and for his needs. Done with you if you can't live up to what I think you should do.
I love Wildstar. I love seeing her story unfold, how she was created in the series. Yeah. And it's an interesting character to follow right now because of how, again, these people are all pulled together, his squad that he has, due to different manipulations by Brainiac of their lives. Some horrible manipulations. He is a horrible man.
Yeah, he's not a nice...
He and Niles Calder are drinking buddies or something. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see these, and I like that, because that makes this universe feel unique as well. I'm reading Superman. I see the hero that you want to aspire to be, and to see the antithesis.
Yeah.
Is he a good guy? Yes. To an extent. I don't know how you qualify that, though.
I don't know if I call him a good guy.
Yeah. He's charcoal.
Yeah, he's another charcoal.
Yeah.
Definitely, He's
he's not
neutral with good tendencies, maybe.
Where it logically makes sense. I don't know how you qualify that. But...
He's a tough person to identify, and he doesn't fit really in the one label. You can't say good, evil, nice, not nice, bad. And I think it's partially the pure intellectual, the logical mindset. It's like with Vulcan. Sometimes you'll see a Vulcan do something without have any emotional reaction, any emotional response. You're like, how can you be so cold? How can you be so thinking like, it's not cold. I don't have any emotions. A lot of the cool scenes with Spock and Kirk, where Kirk looked like he was maybe dead, and you would see no reaction from Spock, and Bones would call him on it. How can you be so cold? It's like, it's not cold. It's logic. We have a job to do, and it's that same mindset that Brainy has.
Yeah. Here's one of my favorite pages that kind of sums him up. This is after his son had basically saved his comrades. We ran into Starro's super thugs. They were looking for Lyral, who's his son. Starro needs him for some reason, and you let them take him? It was his idea. He lied, said we were his property, and he wouldn't cooperate if they didn't let us go. I'm sorry, Vril, but my own son would be dead if I hadn't played along, and your boy is a hero. No. None of you cretins understand. You let them take him? Now the whole galaxy is sprocked. And, he's worried about, and the only thing he cares about is the fact that this guy, Starro, is going to bring his son's memory back, or his full capabilities and intelligence back, and the son's going to deactivate the force field that has been keeping Starro trapped from the rest of the universe. And to see Starro now, I want to see Starro versus the Black Lanterns.
Yeah. That would be a real interesting fight, considering how powerful Starro is, how powerful his crew is. Can they deal with the Black Lantern?
Starro facing some of the races that he's taken down.
He's destroyed, yeah.
So it'd be interesting, just as interesting to see Vril have to face his own demons.
He's got
Starro, I think, is... And his son labeling himself as Brainiac 3.
Yeah.
Just to see that I'd love to see more. I don't know who Brainiac 4 is, but, we're getting to Brainiac 5, who's in the Legion there. And we're seeing that this is...
We're seeing a huge jump, though, if you think about it. Because, if he's Brainiac 3, and that's present day, Brainiac 5 is 31st century.
Right.
So that's a huge jump for 4.
And why? Why, what causes that? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they don't want to admit to being a Brainiac until the 31st century.
Or were there family members that weren't worthy of the Brainiac name? Yeah. That could be interesting as well. But I do. This is one of those books. Seeing him have to deal with his ex-wife or ex-girl out there. That wasn't really his ex-wife. It was his ex-girl where they kind of had a tryst.
Yeah.
Out there taking hearts from basically. I guess you could call them allies of his, although these are people who are together out of convenience.
Yeah, it's
there's treaties here in place, but I have no doubt if the situation allowed itself, there's a lot of them right there that would stab Vril
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and want to do it and are infuriated that they can't. I like that they get in the middle of a Sinestro Corps battle, though, and because they get in the middle of a Sinestro Corps battle and the Black Lantern gets in the way. This gives him an opportunity to become a Sinestro Corps member himself. And what is that going to look like? Is he going to stay a member of the Corps? Would he give up that ring? He always wanted to try it, but I could see him giving it up if there's a reason to. Like, he wants to try this as part of an experiment, like Calder to a certain extent, but like you would expect from a Brainiac. But if there would be any reason that there would be a negative to him on this, he would give up the ring in an instant to keep his own independence.
Yes, I think that's where it's going to get in the way because you think about how the Green Lantern issue ended with Sinestro having all the Green Lanterns guard, the one, just stay in. He wanted in one place. What did I say?
Green Lanterns. No, I meant Korrigar.
Yeah,
in his homeworld.
Yeah, defend Korrigar. I could see it being an edict to Brainy saying, "Okay, you got to go to Korrigar," and have him say, "No, I'm not," and give up the yellow ring.
Or see, and Sinestro would never tolerate another one. This is a guy who, like Mongol and all that, would try to take over the Corps.
Yeah. I was just thinking that as I don't see him coexisting with Sinestro very long.
No, not at all. These guys would butt heads, and he's nobody's second, just like Sinestro isn't. Neither of these guys would.
And he's actually would be a good ring slinger if you think about it. Very intellectual, very control of his emotion, very focused. And that's like the big things with the rings. You being focused and central of thought and just able to go along with it. And I think he's definitely a multitasker, which would be probably an efficient way to fight. If he's able to have conscious, thought patterns going one way, he can do multiple incarnations, creations and whatnot, just coming out of that. And he'll actually, I want to see him as a ring slinger. I want to see at least one fight with him with that ring, just seeing what he can do with it.
I like him a lot in a bizarre way. Like he's the guy you want to punch and smack and do all that stuff with, but yet there's something intriguing about him that keeps me coming back, and I want to see more of what he's going to do. And he's another unique character. He's very well written in this. This is a book, and I want to preface to everybody listening that I'm not trying to say anything negative about the book by saying that, if you read this, like some people might read this issue and you totally got on board. I really felt when I was reading this issue, I'm like, this is a great, for readers who've been reading Rebels, a great Blackest Night tie-in. As far as accessibility through it, I think it'd be good for somebody to kind of look through and say, wow, am I interested in reading more and kind of following through? It's space opera. And the best way I can say that is it's serialized space opera. It feels like it's got that classic serialized feel to it, but you need to read I think you need to read the first 9 issues to really kind of feel like issue 10 is, woof. It is one of those there's a payoff to reading 10 issues of this when you get to the end. But I do think it's a series that my love for the series came over time, and everything that I read previously to it, leading up to this, it had a nice prologue middle, and now we're getting into the heavy parts of it. And that annual is one that I can recommend as well. But it is an interesting. That's one of the things, Myron. I was really curious with you. I'm like, is my theory on this correct? That it is one of those, and I was thinking this was one of those issues where it would be.
Yeah. And I did have some familiarity with the characters from Legion back from the 80s, but it had been such a long time since I've kind of walked in the lives of these characters that I didn't have the familiarity to be able to jump in at this point. But it looks definitely interesting enough. I might go back at some point and look at some of those early issues just to see, because I like the space opera stuff, and I like how the Legion history does tie in with the Green Lantern Corps, because there was a lot of stuff going on between Legion and the Green Lantern Corps and the Omega Men back in the 80s. So I might go back.
And the Omega Men, Omega Men are featured in this series as well.
Are they?
As well as Adam Strange now and Captain Comet. They're moving all of that. The Omega Men have been in the series for quite a few issues now, and just recently, Captain Comet and Adam Strange have joined in, spinning out of the ending of Strange Adventures. So this is going to be the book for those characters, it seems right now. This is where that focal point's going to be. Not because of Blackest Night. This looks like the one that's going to be exploring that area of the cosmic DC universe.
I almost felt like I was trying to get on a highway from a dead stop. You know what I mean? That the story was already in motion. There's so much history there that this really wasn't an entry point book.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a knock. I thought it was. I thought it was a good. No, I don't mean it that way. What I mean on your end, that you were saying that, I was thinking that this was exactly what the discussion was going to be on this one, and I think that's one of the things I like about the book is the space opera feel. And I read Tony Bedard's Rye, and when it was tying in with Magnus over at Valiant. And that very much read like this big space opera, serialized, where you just feel like you're reading just a larger planned story with these, interwoven characters like that. And I love that. I mean, it's... Go ahead.
The goofiness that is my brain. Every time you keep saying space opera, I always hear the Flash Gordon, Flash, every single time you said that, I get this little grin. I'm like, yeah.
I was too until you sang it. It was funny on one of the Facebook threads. I try to keep up as much as I can with Facebook. I'm terrible with MySpace anymore. I used to be so much better with it, and Twitter. Because we've got there's a Raging Bullets account that I put in there, but then I have a personal one too. I don't know why there was a need for both. I did originally thinking that there would be a reason to have a show Facebook account, so I kept it. I mean, it's nice. I'll post in both. But I posted something in there about that we were going to be recording this and whatever we're going to talk about. So I got all kinds of crazy responses, and it's hysterical, like some of the replies that I got. But then one of my coworkers comes on and goes, what about talking about the Flintstones? Because that's what we dressed up as for Halloween. So she doesn't listen to the show, doesn't know anything like that, but I thought it was hysterical that she just she saw this ongoing thread, so tossed it in there. And the one before that said, you could do Raging Bullets the musical. And so I came back and said, we could do Flintstones the musical. Which, with the singing on this show...
Is there a picture of you in Flintstones costume anywhere?
Nope.
You made sure of that.
No, actually, there is. I never tell you where. I will say this. Your Facebook has incredible links to photos that you might want to rethink that. From your Key Club days?
Yeah, my Key Club days. Hey, you know what? I've been slammed on that. And just when I was in high school, I either did Goofy Face or I did Mr. Joe Serious. I can't smile because I'm too cool. Mm-hmm. I got to show how cool I am, so I'm not going to smile.
Well, in high school, who had a good photo, though?
Yeah,
I have pictures of me on my Facebook. For anybody that's a member of it, take a look at some of my high school pictures. There's one picture where I'm at a dance, and I have this look on my face that I'm like, boy, I look really creepy, uncle. That was my comment on it. Like, here's a great shot of me looking really creepy, uncle. Yeah. And I didn't put it up there. It was our friend Rob tossed it up there. I was dying because
Yeah, there's a bunch of Key Club pictures of me out there that I'm just like, man, why are you doing this to me? Come on.
I don't think anybody can look back on their high school photos and not have that. Guys, I want to take a look at Booster Gold. This is an interesting issue 26 of Booster Gold. This is one where you usually have a co-feature. And with this one, they combined the main and the co-feature because it made sense, because obviously right from the cover. This one, you so knew it was going to be Ted Kord.
Yeah.
And I loved this issue. Now, Myron, what is your experience with Booster Gold? I know from our previous conversations about this that you have been reading to a certain extent Booster Gold?
Yeah, I've read most of this run. I missed a few issues here and there, but for the most part, I've read all of it.
Are you a Booster fan?
I wasn't until it was 52 or Countdown, and then all of a sudden I just really got fascinated with the character.
52 is the one with the big focus on Booster. And
yeah, it was.
That was a great primer for who Booster is, because that was the one where it kind of showed us an evolution of Booster, which I think was something that at this point in time, to kind of modernize him, you need that evolution to him. But this book is
going back and reading the JLI stuff with him and just seeing the introduction of Booster, just like I'm really appreciating that.
You have the showcase too. Showcase Booster?
I'm getting the hardcover.
No, Showcase Booster Gold.
No, I did not.
That's a good one to grab.
Okay.
Because it's got...
I really got kind of fascinated with how Booster was going to have to, even though he'd evolved as a character, was going to have to still portray that goofiness, even though he'd evolved beyond that, and be the hero that nobody knew was a hero.
To keep his secret mission going.
Yes. I thought that was just really fascinating and a neat twist.
I'm a time travel sucker, too. And I love the concept of him going back through time to either events that had happened in the DC Universe, events that happened off camera in the DC Universe, trying to alter events that will happen in the DC Universe because he thinks it's the right thing to do, and the frustration that he can't. Kind of being judged by Rip Hunter, and I don't want to spoil anything for people that haven't been reading, but we, as readers, know Rip Hunter's identity in this series, and at least enough of it. We don't know.
We don't know his
origin,
yet,
but we know who he is in this story. I don't want to say anything more than that, because anything else I want to say about this would give it away, and I don't want to ruin that for anybody. But that, knowing how Booster feels like he's constantly being looked down on, or kind of constantly being pushed by Rip Hunter, but understanding who Rip Hunter is, that to me is incredibly interesting in this book as well. And it's really well captured and handled. Ted Kord, though, to see the download on this one, because this is a download I'm very familiar with, but to see it from this perspective where we're actually seeing these events from Ted's eyes, Ted talking about what happened to him with Max and everything.
Yeah.
Ted's a tragic character, because I always liked Ted, and to see not only how Ted felt, but how Booster felt with how the Justice League members viewed him. Because I keep forgetting when that event went down, Ted was giving warnings and was asking for help and was not getting it because of the state that these people were in at that point in time in Infinite Crisis.
Ted figured it out. He figured out what was going on, and
no one took him seriously.
Yeah, no one took him seriously, but like the true hero, he pressed on. And that was something that really, every time when I reread the story, when I'm learning more about Ted, I really just get this, oh man, I feel even worse for him. Just that when he died, when I first read his death, I was like, wow, that's pretty intense. But it wasn't a deep connection because I didn't have that deep personal connection. So now that I do have that with Ted, when I see his death, when he replayed it like this, that was a kind of a whoa kind of moment.
Black Lantern Ted's costume is really cool because it's the same basic costume, but the wrist gauntlet variation, where they're a little bit sharper on the edges, and just a little changes to the boots and that whole look. He could pull off this look if they bring him back. Keep that going.
I don't know. I like the classic Blue Beetle look.
Do you?
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. It does look cool. As a general rule,
if I had a choice though between the two costumes, if I'm going to become a hero, I'm wearing Black Lantern Ted costume. But I agree with you as far as saying if Ted comes back, Ted should wear the classic costume. But I'll wear.
Here's the thing. Now, would you go with that, but blue colored, or keep it the black and gray?
I'd like to see it blue colored. Do we have that option?
Not in the book, but
yeah. Ted Turner colorized a whole bunch of movies. We could probably do it with his costume. But I don't know. This was one I anticipated deeply. I like how we get to see here with Skeets and Rip Hunter that because of their connection to everything going on around them, Skeets would pull in the information from the Flash on what they're dealing with at the moment.
And I like always, whenever there's Rip Hunter, you have the Rip Hunter board.
Yeah.
With stuff. And this time we have Who Stole the Miracle Machine? Wave Rider Lives. Legion of Justice, codename Assassin. Magnus minus Metalman. And Superior Will Come. So I like seeing...
Wave Rider Lives.
Wave
Rider Lives is an interesting one for me. That was one that kind of stood out.
Because that was corrupted Skeets who killed Wave Rider, right?
Right. So that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out as well. This bit with Booster, starting off with mistakes, we all make them, and this is something I've been to funerals for friends.
Yeah, it's
and I got to be. I am the most awkward. I hate funerals. I hate wakes, not because I don't want to honor people. I never know what to say. We talk about as comic fans, we don't know what to say at conventions when we run into, our favorite creators and stuff. You always want to say the cool thing to really convey how you feel about them, but then you end up saying something really dumb or asking a question that you're like, I clearly had no idea what I was going to say, so I said something really stupid. I'm the same way at wakes and funerals. I want to say the right thing. I want to say something to convey how I felt about a person and convey that, I'm sorry what you're going through and all that stuff. I so related to Booster on this. Yeah. What do you say? How do you say the right thing to really say how someone meant to you? And it ultimately, his internal dialogue is exactly what he needed to say, but then he's like, I can't say that because if I really tell Diana and Superman and Batman and all these other people how much it hurt Ted and do all that, I'm not going to... It
wouldn't be about,
It's not about Ted anymore. It's not about honoring Ted. It's not about really saying something about Ted. It's going to alienate people. And, how do you do that at somebody's eulogy? You're wrecking it at that moment. I love those moments, though. Ted, the guy, or like this one, or even tell Guy that despite the fact he treated us like we were beneath him, Ted actually liked him. Tell Barbara she was the love of Ted's life, not that she returned the feeling. This is great writing here. Taking each of these characters and
and when I was seeing this, I was wondering if Booster, present day Booster, was going to fill in and say something that past Booster couldn't say. When we saw past Booster walking out, I was wondering if present day Booster was going to go in there and say something. But I like the fact that he didn't do that. It was, if he had done that, that wouldn't have been about honoring Ted. That would have been about him making up for a past that he didn't do. So he just let it go as it was, and he was there, is more of an honoring of his friend than about himself. And I thought that was just a really cool insight and just the dealings of Booster that, it's showing maturity. It's showing just who he is now as compared to who he was in the past.
Notice he didn't say anything bad about Hawkman.
Of course not.
Hawkman and Hawkgirl are both there. He didn't say anything bad about Hawkman. He knows better. Going back to the Batman thing right here, I loved the fact that the look we see on Batman's face, the head turned down a little bit, he knows. Batman knows this is on him.
Yeah,
the Brother Eye thing and all that. And I loved the drawing here. This is very well done. I was glad to see the emotional response from Batman, just in the sense that it's subtle. You can see it in the outline of his cowl, just the head turned down, the weight that this man's carrying. We've seen this from Bruce before, and this was it's a great example of art conveying emotion in a way. Booster's conveying his feelings, but we see Batman's feelings in that as well. I thought that was a nice, subtle touch that really added something to this scene for me. I thought it was just fantastic art. Ultimately, though, he couldn't say anything, comes up empty and walks out. And then we get to see Blue Beetle. This is a character I was so glad wound up being a backup feature in this book. I don't know, what is your... do you like the current Blue Beetle? Or is he just not a character that you've gotten attached to, Myron? What is your exposure with him? Did you read him before this book?
I didn't read anything after Infinite Crisis. I picked up a couple issues here and there and read friends' copies. I thought he was a neat character, but he just didn't. I didn't latch on to him, but I thought he was a good character. Just it wasn't my thing.
Has any of the I don't know how much you've read of him being a co-feature. Have you liked having the Do you like the co-features?
Yeah, I do like the co-features. Sometimes there are characters that, like Blue Beetle, this new incarnation of Blue Beetle, I like enough that I'd read a little bit of them, but not enough to buy a regular ongoing monthly title. And I thought, a logical choice for him to be a co-feature in the Booster Gold book, and especially for them to interact back and forth.
This is a great example of where co-features really work. Because I like what they're doing in Green Arrow, Black Canary with this, and it was great to see this finally happening here, where they're the main feature and the co-feature kind of blended together in all this. Because I like him like this. It really, and this makes sense here to see his reaction. Because one of the things I like is his, he's standing there because when he got started as Blue Beetle, Booster Gold was there for him. So if Booster Gold needs somebody, I am going to stand there for him because he helped me through my time of getting started with this. When I came back to Earth after I'd just gotten the Scarab, this guy was there for me and really kind of helped me sort myself out, at least at the start. So this is my chance. And we get to see later that this is also a chance for him to kind of finally face the fact that I am Blue Beetle now. And I've been Blue Beetle for some time now. And, it's no more this the real Blue Beetle's back or that type of thing. I'm the real Blue Beetle. I've earned that title at this point. And I think this kid's at that point now where he's earned the title.
Oh, definitely. And I've sung in the praise of this guy, and I really liked the character, and I was really sad to see it go, but him stay alive this way, stay alive in the Titans, has given me some good Blue Beetle stories and just some dealings with him that way. So I'm glad we have something of the Blue Beetle. And this was just, you hit it in the nail on the head there, just where, he's like, okay, hey, he was there for me. I'm there for him. Armors up and they,
and I
fly
like that.
off. Yeah.
That's deep.
That was a very true Jaime just reaction. This is a kid who is a hero. He's got that mindset. We've seen him take big risks, big sacrifices, in the name of the overall good.
I think he's DC's Spider-Man.
Oh, definitely.
I agree. Yep. Oh, yeah. And in the beginning, he didn't really want the Blue Beetle power. He was very reluctant. And now you've kind of seen him evolve rather quickly from that role to someone who is not only accepted but embraced their place in the universe.
He's fun. I like him. I mean, that's that archetype. I mean, he's got that feeling to me. I like his presentation. He reminds me of what I like about Spider-Man, and he's a fun character. This emotional moment with Booster, where he finally has some alone time with the casket, and you get to see him break down. I'm one of those people. I'm the typical guy. You don't want to get choked up. You don't. I'm not. I'll admit I'm human. I cry at this type of stuff, but I won't do it in front of others. I would have this kind of moment where it would have to be in private, and you'd crack down. And so I do fall into that guy category, and I ate this moment up because I'm just like, oh, this feels so real, because he has his own guilt, feeling like, geez, I should have been there. What if I had, had been more open to being there for him? Because he has his own reasons to feel guilty at this point. He should have been there with Ted. Because Ted came to him, too.
Well, he was in the hospital.
Yeah. Right.
So he kind of has an excuse.
But he still feels like he should have stepped it up. He should have gotten out there and done something. It's survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's right to feel guilty or that the blame's on him, but who wouldn't? If you're in the hospital and your friend dies, you're going to be like, what would have happened if I wasn't here?
Yeah.
And being there watching the funeral all over again, had to relive all of that for him and bring up, not just the guilt, but just the sense of loss and the regret for not saying something at the wake. That's a huge amount of emotion to try to maintain and control. And, it's no wonder he broke down. I mean, I can't think of anybody who wouldn't in that situation.
Here's a great example of knowing what to say. And this is what I love about Diana. And she's written so well here. This so feels like the Diana that we're seeing in her own book. This is a moment where she walks up to him and she's like, "You're angry. I understand that. You're angry because we are the ones who are supposed to prevent things like this from happening. And you're angry for yourself for not being there. You have to make peace with yourself, Michael. Once you do, life will get better. It's what Ted would want. And you know what? She gets it. This is like something every wake I've ever wanted to go, I've ever gone to, every comic convention where I meet a creator, every situation in life where I've said something dumb, that's what I've wanted to say. And Diana, that's one of the things I love about her. Her compassion, she knows she can relate to people in such a way that she can be honest and know just what to say. And I love that about this character. I think it's a true thing. People who don't get Wonder Woman a lot of times don't understand why people think Wonder Woman is so cool. This is one of the exact moments where I'm like, this is why Wonder Woman is cool. This is something Batman can't do. Arguably, Superman does this as well, but it's different when he does it. He knows the right thing to say to encourage, to inspire, and all that. Diana knows the right thing to say, though, to really understand exactly what somebody's feeling at any point in time. That's compassion. She has a compassion unlike any other character in comics, to be able to know that right thing to say. Because I'm looking at that and I'm like, wow, I might use some of that.
But, I think if it were Superman, it'd be almost one of those lifesaver moments. Whereas when Wonder Woman does it, you feel that compassion. You can see it in her eyes. She really does get it. She does understand.
Yeah, Clark would be there and he'd be like, I need to say something right now. Yeah. I need to let him know that I respect him. He would say something that would make Booster feel good about himself.
Your Booster, have a lifesaver.
Yeah, exactly. He's one of those guys where you'd have that moment and be like, wow, Superman was there for me, and he just, was good. Superman would listen to him vent or something like that, and they would, offer some kind of really cool comment or something. But Diana really gets the crux of it. She knows internally what he's thinking in his head. Yeah. Even the dark thoughts of you're angry because we are the ones who are supposed to prevent things like this from happening. Taking it and really just saying, you're angry at me. Not just me, all of us. And I get it.
We let him down.
I get it.
Yeah.
And it's just, very well written. This was something where, what kind of man can't eulogize his best friend? And, I think that's the kind of friend that cares.
Truly cares and truly is missing and is hurt. Yeah.
You're so afraid you're going to say the wrong thing and then you regret not saying anything at all.
And that's one thing that's great here, because Booster is truly human. Oof.
Yeah, I know. It is one of those things where this was another emotional response. And I liked how this played out, especially with the stuff that Booster has been recently going through. He's had a couple rough patches lately, and he's still, reeling from it. He's still reacting to it. And then to go back to this moment in time, it's a wow, kind of, opening himself up for some heartache, but it's a confrontation of the past and a dealing with what he did and didn't do. It is a moving on.
I love that Blue Beetle shows up at Supernova's house and Daniel's house, and right when he's having these conversations, and you hear this airplane coming along, and it winds up being the Beetle mobile, the bug.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see that even had a twisted variation that looked Black Lantern.
Yeah.
It's a Black Lantern version of the bug that totally fits.
Now, I wonder if Blue Beetle Black Lantern can actually fly without it. Because we've seen, Black Lanterns fly without who couldn't fly before able to fly.
I would say yes, but he wouldn't utilize that in this type of situation because it would dispel the illusion.
Yeah.
You need to create this picture that this is the guy really here, and he really has somehow come back from the dead, and he really is feeding me this stuff. He's really angry or, really sad or any of this. He's got, some unfinished business, whatever.
You don't even see a ring on his finger, actually.
No, which is, that's very well handled how this all plays out. This is Ted Kord's body, reanimated by the Black Lantern ring. He feeds on our emotions. So at this point in time, I love that at this point in time, this is because of the Flash.
Yep.
What we've already seen, Flash said, we've got to get the word out to everybody. This wouldn't be possible if Flash hadn't. So I love that we're seeing now, because of the time frame this takes place on, we now know when this takes place in relation to Blackest Night.
Yeah.
Flash has already gotten the word out at this point. I don't need to know specifically, what panels it takes place between or anything like that. But I like the reference point. We know what has already happened in Blackest Night prior to this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty cool at this point. I I got to tell you, one thing I really like about Blue Beetle, I wouldn't want the whole scarab in my back thing. That would be a little creepy. But I do love the fact that the scarab allows him to make these different gadgets and gizmos and really, that this whole little pulling out the jetpack and using that to go after it. That would be fun. Like, I like the suit aspect of it. If I could wear the scarab like a backpack versus having the scarab burrow into my body, I'm all aboard on this one. But I wouldn't want that thing burrowing in my back. You know how creepy that would be?
I don't know.
You'd have to have a special pillow at night.
Well, I don't know. I think it's probably, since it's party, it really wouldn't be an uncomfortable thing.
Do you think it's ergonomically designed?
Yeah, I think it's ergonomically designed. And
if you have a memory foam mattress, you're all set.
That's true, too.
But it's even because it's inside you. Because it's inside you,
Uh-huh.
if you lay on it, it's not digging it in deeper. It's already in you.
Well, it is, though. It's on your spine.
You probably feel like having a great big scab.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
That would be. I mean, your spine is not something you get discomfort from your spine.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's also isn't it actually inside him though?
Yes.
So that's not even like laying on something wouldn't add
Your
to
spine.
it. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think actually it'd be probably
You have like a growth on your back or something like that. That's in that area. You're going to feel that. You're not going to sleep right on that, even if it's internal.
I'm thinking it's probably allows it compensates.
It's like
for
cushiony or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. And
I like his memory foam mattress idea.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Or you think it turns into a memory foam mattress?
I don't know. Maybe it does something, a little modification, so it's not uncomfortable on him.
Oh. I never thought about this before, but sleeping for him is something that I wonder what that's like.
Maybe he's a stomach sleeper.
Oh, that's a good point, too.
Could be a stomach, yeah. Or a side sleeper.
See, that's something we relate on. I'm more of a stomach sleeper as well, so I could be Blue Beetle.
I'm a back sleeper.
Are you? I can't sleep
I'm
on
back
my back.
Back or side.
So see, maybe the scarab would work for me, I think. Because I can't fall asleep on my back. I can sleep on my side or on my stomach, but not on my back. So I could be Blue Beetle. Without a memory foam mattress. But you could be too if you get the mattress.
Yeah, that could be his endorsement deal.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Which and that is another way for him to then relate to Booster.
There you go.
Supernova. I like the appearance of the return of Supernova. It wasn't just he was initially trying to get out of going to the cat show, and he didn't want to go that. He's like, oh god, but he does put on the costume for the right reasons. He does put on the costume to save his girl, and get her out of there, and
considering
get away
the importance
from
of their relationship, that's something I wanted to see as well. I like Dan's art on this.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me very much of what I liked during his run on Superman, where we got to see this artwork. There's something about this he's got a style that's very, you can see his work and know it's his right away, but there's something very classic about his as well. And Booster's one of those characters that really needs to look classic. He's got that kind of sleek design about him that is, it needs that look and that feel to it, and I like that. But now, he's ready to go after old Supernova right here, and that's got to freak Booster out because of that identity.
Mm-hmm.
That's another example of where the identity of that person, you've got to make sure not only that he stays alive, but what do you do with your friend? This is all the more interesting to see him confronted by Ted at this point with just having gone through that funeral again.
Yeah. And I really want to see him deal with this, and
this is a jumping on issue.
This is a close. Yeah. This is definitely a jumping on issue, and I'm thinking by the end of this, we're going to get some more closure from Booster and Ted. I think this could actually be a good thing for Booster eventually to get. Initially it's going to be tough on him. Initially he's going to get rocked really hard, but I think when everything is said and done, he's going to be able to recover from this, and it may actually be a good thing for him that this happened.
Can Ted Kord come back? I'm not talking about like in general as far as, because we don't know where this is going yet with as far as that goes, but could Ted Kord come back? Could he come back and work in the DCU?
I think he could, but I don't think he will.
I don't either.
I'm
just curious reading this one. I think, because as funny as I was reading this, I'm like, wow, it would be some interesting storytelling to see him come back. I think I'm with you, Jim, in that I think the closure would be an interesting storytelling as well. How does Booster finally move away from this and be able to move on, and it will. That's something I think Booster being able to move on from this is something that will help him grow as a character.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I really.
Yeah, I don't think. Actually, I don't think he. I definitely don't think he's going to come back. I think Ted's gone.
I do too. But I
don't know if
curious.
And I think he was a great character and he was a great hero. And
I don't mean come back in the sense
him,
that I want the new character to lead him on.
I don't think I would want to see him come back. It's.
I did when I was reading that story where he was back.
Yeah.
I wanted him back because I thought that story, that crossover between the two, where
Yeah, I know.
where Booster saved him. I wanted to see that somehow work out because I liked the two of them together. I run I run both ways on it, and
see, it's tough. I'm
with you right now. We're in agreement right now. But it is. I still am torn.
Yeah,
and he's just an incredibly interesting character. I got to say, overall, I'm very satisfied with the way these issues worked out as far as tying into the series. I liked that they didn't derail. They didn't derail character development in their books. Like Booster, I mean, that's all character development for both Booster and Blue Beetle. That, it moves these characters forward. It deals with heavy emotions. It lets us get to know them inside and what this is doing to them. Those are things that are important to me when you read these kind of tie-in issues. Are they issues that really add something that you're going to remember a year from now? Or is it going to be one of those issues where it reads like a filler issue that didn't have any impact?
Yeah, you always wonder if sometimes when you read books like that are ties into events, the event kind of hijacks the book, and this really gives you an appreciation for how well orchestrated this seems to be because it all just seems so natural.
Also, I guess what I wanted to commend there is the writers of these books that they tied in with for finding a way to have fun and enjoy this event while not derailing their book.
Yeah.
Because derailing is just a great term for it. I don't want to see that happen with a book that I'm enjoying reading. I like when there's reasons to tie a book in. I like when it works. I do hope with these books, I happen to like all three of these books, so I'm hoping that this event it draws readers into them who maybe were looking for a new title, because maybe there's one they're not enjoying right now, and they're like, okay, because they're three very different titles. I mean, so there really is something for three very different fans. I like a broad range of stuff in my collection, but these are something that I could see appealing to. You could hand these to three different people, and I think each one of them would choose a different book that they like the most. Because they're so different and so varied out of all of them.
Yeah.
But I hope this does have the effect. Obviously, they did this for the purpose of drawing some attention and notice to these books. And I'm hoping it does it because these are great series that I think could appeal to a different fan base than I think has normally been checking them out. So this was fun. Myron, I want to thank you again. I want to remind everyone, first of all, about the blog of OA. It's blogofoa.com. It's a really fantastic blog. Myron also, there's a direct link if you click on the Raging Bullets columns section right on the website, right up at the top bar. You can get, his banner is right there. You can click right on the blog of OA from there, so you don't need to write it down or anything. Just go and pop over and check out Myron's work there. Myron, as we mentioned last episode on this one, you're going to be joining us now as we do these Blackest Night features to talk further about them in this event. This is a huge event,
yes,
in scope, and I'm loving the tie-ins. I get excited each week. Like I said, I tore open the box today because I know I'm going to want to talk Adventure Comics, and I'm going to be sad because we're doing Preacher next. I'd be sad if we waited. We had
to talk about that. Yeah.
So I literally read that one right away today with the purpose of knowing that we'd want to talk about the events with Superboy Prime. But thank you for coming on, because when I originally invited you, I invited you for an episode, and I had no idea we were going to go this crazy in depth on Blackest Night. But I'm glad we did, because I think we covered a lot of different interesting topics with Blackest Night. So, and thank you for agreeing to join us in the future as we continue to explore this series.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the show. I've been listening for a while. And this event has really been, I don't know, it just seems a little different. I've been happy with every single book I've picked up with the Blackest Night banner on it. Sometimes you read the events and you start reading some of the different books, and some are hit or miss. And this has just been one where even the books where I don't have the affinity for the characters already, I still enjoyed the book, irregardless.
Fantastic. So I want to thank you again, and we will be talking to you soon as we continue this.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
I wanted to add on a few of our listener voicemails. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them on this episode, but I definitely wanted to start putting some of them on this particular show. So thank you so much for participating. I want to remind everyone that's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype.
Hey, this is Daryl from the forum. I want to tell you that I love the show again. I am a fan of the show, and I really want to talk about the Batman Blackest Night mini. I really thought Peter Tomasi did a really great job of showing the relationships between, I know Dick and Tim are having an issue right now. They're kind of strained, but overall they did a good job of, they do have the strain, but you know that they still have that bond. And he didn't ignore that. I think Peter Tomasi has been really doing a great job. I mean, it hasn't been a story that he hasn't done that I haven't enjoyed. I mean, he shines on Green Lantern Corps. He did a hell of a job on the Nightwing book. I'm sad that it got canceled when he was doing it. This mini was just great. The art on this mini was just, I can't think of the guy's name. I'm sorry for that, of the artist on the mini, but he definitely deserves a shout out because the art is just beautiful. The coloring, all of it, pencils, coloring, it all works. It all worked in that mini. I know some people are saying that it was a waste, like it started out well and it didn't end well, but it's early on and there's not really much that they can do. I mean, you can't really give too much away of the story of Blackest Night because it's really just starting. So, but you did get some type of progression in the relationship between Dick Grayson and Tim, and at the same time, even Damian had a little growth because he actually followed orders. I mean, and it showed that as he's working with Dick Grayson, that he's starting to grow on it. He's starting to actually mature a little bit on his own. He's still a jerk, but he's growing. I just watched the Smallville episode Candor. I am really loving the show even more. Like, I'm falling in love with the show all over again. I love the introduction of of Clark and with his father. It was sad that they couldn't have had more time to. I would have loved to have seen Clark interact with his Kryptonian father just a little bit more than he's been able to do so far. Zod is the perfect evil person that he's charismatic. He's charismatic, and at the same time he has that darkness in him where he will slit your throat. He'll stab you in the back. That. Him having superpowers is just, I'm scared of him getting their superpowers back. That is a scary situation because you can see how dangerous he is. Just him without powers. So just imagine him with his powers having to fight Clark. So overall, I'm just loving it. I'm very happy with the progression of Clark and Lois. I'm all in. I'm glad. I don't want them to stretch it out and them not to get together. I want them to get together and just keep it moving. So I do want another season. I could go for another season of the show. And if he could wear the whole suit and just be Superman, I would love it. Just one season, I would love it. So overall, that's it. Love the show. Take care.
And you can check out more from Daryl over at DaFixer's Hideout and the Comic Book Roadshow podcast. Yes, the art was the first thing I noticed on that Batman mini. I'm with you. Your points are correct. I I understand the criticisms, and I can respect that. But for me, these minis were about showing us how Superman and Batman's universes tied into Blackest Night. What are they doing? If this thing's happening worldwide, how could they possibly be ignoring it? Wouldn't it affect them in some way? And those minis showed that. But I think with the way that they wrapped up, they had to leave them rather open-ended. They had to, because the mini, obviously, I'm convinced like we're going to see Superman, especially from some cover teasers, we're going to see Superman and Superboy in the main Blackest Night mini. So it was hard to kind of wrap that up and not leave it open-ended because the story of Blackest Night itself is not over yet. So I found them satisfying in that they did exactly what I wanted them to do. They didn't just show how Superman and Connor, for example, fit in. Like in the Superman one, it showed also what Ma Kent was doing and how this affected her and Crypto. And I love those bits. And the same thing with the Batman world. You can say, you know, how did Red Robin tie in? And would he and Dick come together? And how do they deal with those traumas, considering the strained nature of their relationship currently? So I thought it told a lot of story in there, considering the fact that they had to be very careful as far as what they revealed with regards to Blackest Night. And both books gave us some clues into what was going on in Blackest Night. The stuff with using Mr. Freeze's weaponry did show us something about the nature of the Black Lanterns and how they are able to recognize people. And I thought those were some key elements. So I enjoyed the minis. I did as well. I can see, like I said, I can see the other side of it. But if you look in the overall larger story, it was a good move to handle it the way that they did. So, I don't know, kind of neat. Smallville, oh, and especially with this episode, I want to actually watch some spoilers on this one because I know some of our listeners aren't doing that, and I'll put in some of the timestamps for the voicemails that there is a little bit of Smallville discussion in this. But especially with this week's show, it looks like after this particular one that was released this week, they're going to be on a hiatus till January, I think, because they did a teaser, I know, on ours for the JSA episode coming in January, which I've heard now is going to be a TV movie. They're going to be doing that episode as a whole 2-hour movie instead of breaking it up into 2 bits, which I think is going to be great. I'd love to see that whole thing laid out that way. I want to feel like that's a big event. I'm excited. So I want to see how this all plays out. But Smallville this season, the Lois and Clark relationship to me has been the key. Smallville, we were talking about, Bart and I were talking about this. He just posted something in the forum. And one of the things I do like about this season that it has been a criticism of the past is we're finally seeing a lot out of Clark. We're finally seeing Clark step up. We're seeing him more and more grow into the man that we want him to be. And ultimately, I think that's where this show is going to succeed when you look back and watch all the seasons together. When you get to see that growth from who he was in the earlier seasons into the man that we expect him to be, they're really exploring something with a depth that even in the comics they haven't done. And because there's a lot of those years that weren't done, even in the Superboy book, weren't done on the page. And I'm talking about, you know, the original Superboy offerings. So they're telling different kinds of stories that haven't been really addressed before. This season for me is definitely taking it to a next level, though. And that's really an important distinction because last season I enjoyed, and there were episodes that I thought were just downright brilliant. And I enjoyed the season overall. I had a good time with it. But this season really just, the notch has been kicked up. Every single one has just had a lot of pop and flair and a lot of great stories. So I'm anxious to see how this whole thing ends up playing out. And if they can keep that consistency up all the way through, this might be my favorite season of Smallville.
Hey, Sean and Jim. This is Rick Roxton from the Book Cave. And I want to thank you for doing the Preacher book episode that I haven't got a chance to listen to it yet because you haven't got it up. And this is the first time I've ever read Preacher. I've heard quite a bit about it, and I was always just like, I don't think I really want to. And since I saw it that you're going to do it at the Book of the Month Club or whatever you want to call your, what you're doing, I said, okay, fine. I'll kind of glance at it. One of the people on the CGS forums happened to have Preacher and a few other books. And I said, well, I'll go ahead and bid on it. I got it fairly cheap. Yeah, it wasn't something I wasn't really expecting to buy because I wasn't really looking forward, to pick it up. But I picked it up, got it in the mail, and started reading on it. And I got to say, with the exception of the profanity, I thought it was very well written. I mean, you know, a little profanity is a bit over the top at times. You know, it's like, how many times can you use the F word in one issue? But the characters, it got me interested. Makes you wonder why Jesse, the preacher, left Tulip. And what's his history? And why is Tulip doing what she had did, you know, with the gun? And Cassidy, the interesting and spoiler, but you probably already covered it all. Cassidy's a vampire, but he looks like a different type of vampire because he doesn't have the fangs sticking out, but he does go up in smoke if he's in contact with the sunlight. He wears the sunglasses. You find out he's about 100 years old because he's around whenever the Empire State Building was first opened up. But you still have a whole lot of mystery about the guy. What is his history? I mean, when was he turned? And what's he been doing since then? Is the ones he's killed or got the blood from is ones who either were going to die or deserve to die according to his friend, quotation marks around that. And Cassidy really got my curiosity. And like I said, if it wasn't for you two, I probably would never gotten into Preacher. So it got me interested. Says, all right, now I'll be looking for more trades of the Preacher. Thanks a lot, guys. Like I don't have enough stuff to read already. Just kidding. Thanks, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Actually, Rick, I'm so glad you called with those comments, because that is one of the reasons why I guess we call them Rage of the Months now. We did call them Book of the Months at the beginning, and I tried to come up with a clever name. I took the Book of the Month thing from Comic Geek Speak because they've always done a Book of the Month there, and it's the same thing. It's the same Book of the Month concept. But the idea behind it was, and it's something we've tried to do since we've done the show, is to cover, while we're covering in depth the new material, to take some time out of the show to cover some older material. And Preacher's been one of those I've wanted to do since the beginning, for a lot of the reasons you just stated here. You talk about Cassidy and the rich character development with him. Most of the characters, if not all of them in the story, are richly developed throughout the series. So a lot of the questions that you have about Cassidy, and I don't want to spoil them right now, are answered later in the series. They really do an amazing job of covering just about everybody you could want to cover within Preacher. So it's a great series, and I'm glad you got involved in it. I think it's fantastic. And to read that story, I'm jealous of you, because you get to read that story from the beginning and experience that story in the way that I did when I read it back in. I remember the day when I read that one, it was woof. I do compare it to Starman, as it's one of those books. There's a short list of books that I feel from beginning to end just had that kind of pop to it. And Preacher is one of those that fills into that category, and I can highly recommend that one. Especially if you're into good character drama and rich character development, where your questions about backstories, your questions about who they are and what motivates them and why, are answered throughout, and they are. So anything you're asking right there, good stuff, and I'm glad you're reading and enjoying it.
Hey guys, Micah. I'm at work. I hope you can hear me. But I paused the podcast. I know it's normally in the States. Could cover this later, I apologize, but we're talking about in episode 183, the nature and nurture thing. And if you look at, what's his name? God's kid, how he's changed his entire life after being the son of God, because he was raised by Superman and Lois Lane for a while. He's gone on a totally different path. So if Connor stops being such a little prick and stops trying to be Lex Luthor so much, he'll learn that, he doesn't have to go down that way because he's half clone. Hasn't he been doing this for, 10 years now? It feels like he's been doing this whole, I don't know what I am I Superman or am I Lex Luthor, for a long time. He really just get over himself and go down a path. Pick one. I don't even care what it is anymore. Just pick one and stop being like a flip-flopper or whatever. Yeah, that's all. You can just go talk to Chris Kent and figure out, even though your dad or half of your parents may be, crazy lunatic doesn't mean that you have to go on the same Christian path. You could definitely go out and be a good person and be your own man. It doesn't matter who your parents are. So that's all. I'll see you later. Bye.
I'll tell you one thing I love about this voicemail is it reminds me of what happens with me with comics. We start talking about these people like they're real characters. And I'm not like the real characters, like the real people, the real friends that we can talk to and just kind of say, hey, wake up. Connor's situation with Luthor, where he was just taken over, that actually happened shortly before his death. So for us, it was a while ago. But for him, you got to remember, he was dead during the time that has passed for that. So he basically came back into his own shortly before the events of Infinite Crisis, where we lost him. So it isn't really that much time for him, progression-wise. So that is interesting to have him going through this right now. It is important that he deals with this, and he comes to terms with it. I agree with you. But what I like is right now we're seeing exactly what you're asking for. He's got to come to terms with it. He's got to deal with it. So we're seeing that done on the page. So he's giving you what you're asking for in what I think is a right time frame for him. But I can understand why you think it seems so much longer, because technically for us as readers it is. It isn't for him. So I hope that makes sense. He didn't really have an opportunity to really address this like he would have wanted to, because he died. So a lot of what you're asking, it's kind of in a normal situation, you would say, well, didn't he already get some counseling and deal with that? Well, no, dude died. So that's really the honest problem for the poor fella. He passed on before he could get his tough love. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see that covered. I'm with you. I like. It's one of the things in Blackest Night that I'm talking about. I like that we've seen Hal move on from a lot of his issues, from things like Parallax and stuff like that. He's moved beyond all that now because of the fact that we've seen him deal with that on the page in the comic book, seen him come to terms with it, and he's at the point right now where he has paid his dues. He has paid the price, and for something that really technically he was not responsible for. And Connor's got to come to those terms as well. And I'm glad that we're seeing that play out now for a lot of the issues that you're mentioning here. It's time to deal with it, and let's move on. So hopefully we get what you're looking for beyond this. Kind of cool.
G'day, Doc and the Sensei. Just Sam from Australia. Just got online and saw the new trailer for the Jeff Johns Smallville episode. Have you seen this? This is awesome. It looks like Alan Scott is in it. I saw a Green Lantern on the image. Boy, does this look awesome. And there's a huge oil painting at the end of a huge JSA team at the end. Boy, I'm so totally pumped for this, and I can't wait to see the full episode. Just had to go and geek out with somebody, and I thought I'd better give you guys a call and geek out a little bit. As always, love listening to the show, and can't wait to hear another one pretty soon. Okay, talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.
You rock. I was watching that literally this morning. I didn't have a chance to watch it last night. I was working on editing the show. And Smallville's one of those, it airs here Friday nights, and I either watch it right Friday night when it airs, or I watch it first thing on Saturday morning, and because I can't wait to see what's going on the new episode. And the trailer was at the end of this episode, and you're right. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I've heard this is going to be a TV movie now. They're going to release it as a full-blown movie now. So I am so excited. And you're right, that oil painting at the end. We got to see images of Dr. Fate in there. Oh, did he look good? And Sandman. In costume, the way that they should be. I'm so excited for this. I've seen some criticisms from people about the Hawkman image, and it was a static image, and I'm so excited to see that with all the special effects in place and with the TV production in place, because when I saw Dr. Fate and Sandman now, the way that they were in action, because we haven't seen Hawkman in action, I'm so geeking out right now because they looked so fantastic that I have no doubt Hawkman's going to look just as good because of how great they looked in just that couple second trailer. So I'm with you. This is awesome. I think this is going to be one of the best episodes ever of Smallville. I think it's going to be just breathtakingly cool. This season just keeps getting better and better. And I'm glad these last 2 seasons, they're wrapping them up with a lot of the big things that are like fans' wish lists. Things that we would have liked to have seen throughout. And we're seeing more and more of it now. This is the time to do it. The show has moved so beyond the original premise because it's gone longer than they expected. So now they have a chance to do some of the things that they probably never thought the show would be able to do. They stayed very grounded early on for the right reasons. I think that, they had a certain goal with it. And now that it has grown beyond that, I'm incredibly thrilled and excited. So thanks for calling on this one. I'm geeking out too. That trailer looked awesome. If any of you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and check out the trailer, because it's a cool one too. If you're not watching Smallville right now, the trailer itself doesn't really spoil anything at all from this season, other than it just gives you a little hint at what the JSA episode's going to look like. So it's pretty darn cool, and I'm excited.
Hey, Sean, and what's his name? Victoria, Amanda, Jackie. Oh, Jim. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, this is Rick Croxton from the Book Cave and Film Club podcast, and it's been a while since I've given you a call, so I figured I'd do a little rant on another series of books I'm getting into. This is the Batman Chronicles. I've got like the first 6 books, and I just finished reading the second one, and it's really great. You get to read these things in chronological order, both series, which is really fantastic because I've read a lot of these reprints. Some I've never read, and this is the first time of reading some of these, and it's a real joy, because most of these things you're not going to be able to find with any kind of affordability, and half of them, this is probably the first time they've been reprinted, except for in the archives. So it's worthwhile checking. I bet Sean, you probably picked them up since you're a big Batman fan like myself. Also, I'm picking up the Showcase Batman, which I got the first 4, which I haven't read any yet because I'm wanting to get a lot of the Golden Age read first. And plus, I've read probably the biggest part of those growing up from the 60s and 70s. I picked up a lot of older ones and read a lot of reprints and stuff like that. And this is a great way, the Chronicles and Showcases for DC, to reprint a lot of stuff that we won't be able to find too easy. I would love to see a lot more of the Golden Age stuff being reprinted, since all we really have in the Chronicles is Superman and Batman. Unless I'm wrong, it would be nice to see some of the quality comics characters being reprinted. I'm a big fan of those. There, you have like Plastic Man, the Black Hawks, the Spider, the Clock. There's quite a few of those. So the quality comics is really great stuff. And since you're the big man, Sean, you should go and tell DC to start reprinting those Golden Age Chronicles for us. Well, I guess we'll talk to you guys later, and hope you enjoy listening to the Book Cave and Film Club, as I really enjoy listening to your shows. And thank you, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yes, absolutely. I enjoy listening to your podcast. It's one of the great things now about just the podcasting community is just the diverse amount of podcasts. I've seen people before complain about the fact that saying there's way too many podcasts. I'm like, really? You're worried about having too much choice? It's like saying there's too many television channels. It's just insanely baffling to me that anyone would have that complaint. But I think this is fantastic. So thank you for your voice and bringing it to our show when you can. And to talk about the Chronicles books, I adore those and the Showcase books, affordable ways for us to get comics that are almost impossible to pick up, and to be able to get them in runs, because I'm a reader. I want them in runs. I want them in readable runs where I can start following complete stories and that type of thing. And the Golden Age material, it's amazing how well Golden Age material holds up today. I want to see Wonder Woman Chronicles. We've got The Flash, we've got Green Lantern, we've got Batman, we've got Superman. I love all of them. I want Wonder Woman. Where are they at? That's the one that I want to see next. So I'm hoping we get some of that. As far as pull, I wish I had some pull to be able to see. Of course, see, that's part of the problem, though. I want everything reprinted, and they've got to pick and choose what they reprint. And, they're looking at, obviously, what are going to be the most high-interest items with what are currently being going on in the universe. There is a profitability factor to comics, and they have to look at the business end. And I am, as a fan, I'm well aware of that balance of it as far as picking and choosing. But the Chronicles books, if any of you haven't picked them up, I urge you to. They're really affordable. They're cheap. I know our sponsor, InStockTrades.com, has them. And I got friends of mine that are currently reading them that love them. I mean, it's the Golden Age material really, really holds up well. And it's great to see where these characters came from, especially Batman and Superman. These characters go back so far, and they have such rich history. And it's cool to see, what it looked like in the beginning to be a fan of these books. And I eat that kind of stuff up. So thanks, Rick, for pointing that out. And if you aren't listening to the Book Cave, make sure to check out the Book Cave.
You filthy criminals.
Want to remind everyone about our sponsors for this episode, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, remember Doom Patrol 6, regularly $3.99, 40% off, only $2.39. That's a great discount for that book. InStockTrades.com, you can pick up the Showcase Presents Booster Gold Trade Paperback Volume 1, containing issues 1 to 25, Action Comics number 594, regularly $16.99, 37% off, only $10.70. DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, remaining your comic book discount sources. Over on the website, I want to remind everyone to check out the Bat Casebook. It's a brand new column that's been put up there, besides the blog of Oa that has been so wonderfully put together by Myron Rumsey and Mart's blog and Life in the Gutter and all kinds of listener content that keeps getting added onto the site and the Where's Whatnot Nows and things like that. Jared has put up this Bat Casebook, and it really is, he's doing a review every week of the Bat titles that have been coming out, and they're really good. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, that's the Bat Casebook, and it's over at RagingBullets.com. So thank you, Jared, for putting that together, and please check it out. I do want to one more time pass on my condolences to the friends of Eric Martin from DC Noise. It was something that really just shook me up, and I just once again wanted to end off the show with that theme. Just a fantastic guy, and he will be missed. Jim, our next episode, Preacher Part 2. So I'm excited to continue
on the Preacher discussion.
Yeah, 5 through 8. And we'll wrap that up, and nice little bow. Kent here hasn't gotten back to us yet as far as what our next book is that we're going to do. So as soon as I get an email back from him, I will announce to everyone formally on what the book is we're going to do after Preacher. I don't know what it is yet. But the funny thing is, Jim, you and I had a discussion tonight. We are in the planning phases of episode 200. 200.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so we're going to have we're starting to take a look at what that's going to look like to try and plan something interesting and epic. Yeah. We have a few ideas we were tossing out today. The funny part is I'm strangely intrigued by the insane idea you had.
Yeah, I
know. I shouldn't be because so
I know it's
funny.
We're not
I will say this though. It is an idea we had mentioned once before, a long time ago. And considering the way, and we were doing the show a little bit differently back then as far as how in-depth we went. So to do this the way we do it now would be really nuts.
Yes, it would be.
Which is part of the reason why it's strangely intriguing to me. So we'll think about that one.
Yeah.
Let's kind of leave
it out there.
Leave that out there for the moment because we're not sure if that's what we're going to go with anyway. But I also want to give a shout out to Comic Timing. Comic Timing has an episode 100 coming up, and Ian Levinstein is a great friend of the show, and it's amazing how that podcast has evolved over time, and he's had different co-hosts and things like that throughout the show, but it's great to see Comic Timing still around. Ian's one of those guys that with Geek Speak that got me just like CGS, Ian Levinstein is one of those guys that really helped me break into podcasting and made me realize that I really wanted to do this. So there wouldn't be a Raging Bullets without Ian Levinstein. So
he's the ambassador of Quan,
Ian.
baby.
Yeah, I want to congratulate Brent.
Yes.
And, he's done BK's Bullets for us many times. 100 episodes is a big deal. I remember when we hit our 100, I was like, whoa, really? It does feel like, it feels like you've accomplished something, because these are all, anybody who's doing a podcast is doing it as a labor of love, and it's something that you just really enjoy doing, and to be able to say, wow, I've done that for 100, I'm thrilled for them. So congratulations, Comic Timing, and we will see you next week.
Bye.